Radio Walkie Talkie, Radio Walkie Talkie, Radio Walkie Talkie, Walkie Talkie, from mesh to mesh.
So guess who's back? It is Team Rabbithole edition 90, once again with Cullen Smith of Lifting the Veil. Welcome.
Yo, 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 yo.
Yeet. I am so glad. You're my favorite cancer etymologist. Man, I mean, getting real specific there with all these labels. But, Cullen, welcome back. I know last time you came on, it was this like group fucking gangbang situation, and you were starting to spit hot fire. I should clarify. It was just a lot of people on a conversation. We weren't actually having sex. But the point is... some people might not know. It's like, we were doing this gangbang, and I looked over, and there was Cullen. No, it's more like there was a bunch of people, episode 69, ironically, which is the cancer glyph, in a way, which is the mother and child embrace, which is what you are. First house, Cancer, Sun, and Chiron, which I can get into in a minute. But bottom line, we had you on a couple weeks ago, and we've had you on before that. You were one of our first guests, I think like the 12th episode. We're at 90 now. We're trucking through it. But, yeah, dude. I'm so glad you came on, and I'm so glad you're awake.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, always good to come on. Anytime you guys want to, I'll try to clear my schedule and get on.
That's what's up. I know you were up all night. You said doing some work, which doesn't surprise me. You crush. So you're a diligent motherfucker, and you're like. It's almost like, I don't know, you read those people doing like world record push-ups or crunches, and it's like, I feel like you do that with media where you're just churning it out. It's crazy. But it is the 90th episode that in the major arcana reduces to the Hermit card, which is, I kind of think, where resonant in a way with all this isolation and kind of where everybody is a little. But in this deck, ironically, in the Starman Tarot deck, the Hermit is the alien. Da-da-da. I bring back knowledge from distant places. Knowing your worth, which we might get into for a second with your Chiron Sun conjunct first house, but knowing your worth. You are perfect the way you are. Cullen, that's you. Be free. Seek answers within you. Go deeper and understand more of the universe. Take the time to do something you've never done before. So I'm out of curiosity, Rafael, what's number 90 in your Galactic Heritage deck?
Out of sheer curiosity, Cullen, you're also gonna like this one, I believe. So in Lister Royal's Galactic Heritage deck, number 90 is Whale Consciousness. Shamanic Journey, Parallel Time Stream. Shamans teach us to navigate through our deepest unconscious in order to confront our shadows and release stagnant beliefs and habits, creating profound transformation. Whale consciousness, which is connected to Sirius, is shamanic in nature. When we work with it, we must look into the mirror and see the false self. Whales are providing this service on a large scale for Earth at this time, but in a very subtle way, and mostly through dreams. You've pulled this card because you have a connection with whale consciousness, now or in the past, or in the future. And it is calling to you once again.
That's what's up.
That's really interesting and extremely synchronous because I think it was just yesterday. I was watching something. I think it was a virology lecture or something like that from University of California. And then the next thing that played after that was a presentation by an oceanographer about asking specific questions about exactly why do whales sing, and why, because only certain whales have songs and certain other whales don't sing. So it's the most popular whales, the humpback whales and blue whales, some of the larger whales that are the only ones that sing. And it's extremely synchronistic because obviously the whales, especially the humpbacks, they're they're some of the deep diving whales. And so again, the depths of the unconscious nature, which is literally the collective consciousness of the ocean, which the ocean is basically most of not just the volume, but the actual biosphere of planet Earth is arises from the oceans. And so the whales in that sense are essentially like the oversoul, or sort of the guidance of the entire ocean system. And those whale songs, there's that, I forget what it is, there's the marine layer, there's this it's a middle layer of the ocean due to the salinity that acts as a perfect resonant carrier for those whale songs, the same way that the ionosphere does for the Schumann resonance of the atmosphere. The same thing happens in the ocean, and the whale songs actually regulate. They can communicate basically from anywhere throughout the globe, because they're that layer of salinity in the ocean, the saltiness, the salty layer of the ocean actually acts as a perfect sonic carrier. So it's literally their songs just echo and reverberate throughout pretty much the entire ocean, so they can communicate with each other, and not just themselves, but pretty much all of oceanic life through that layer of salinity that they inhabit. And so their songs basically act as like a resonant carrier to basically carry that message throughout the entire ocean. And it's pretty incredible. And I mean, there's so much more that we're just starting to learn about whale song and the power of sonic, of especially the sperm whales. Like I forget what it was. I saw this presentation a couple years back, and I shared it on my Facebook. It was absolutely mind-blowing. Like, I mean, I've been studying, animals and nature since I was a kid, but this, I forget exactly off the top of my head what it was or whose presentation it was, but it was incredible. He was talking about brand new research about how the sperm whales will actually gather around, like he was a diver and oceanographer, so he was studying the whale songs, and they will gather around, and they'll basically stand like pillars, which is exactly the same symbolism from the movie Arrival, where those black monolithic spaceships, they sort of just gathered at different locations around the globe, and they stood there in like a monolithic standing stone type position. That's exactly what the sperm whales will do. They will they'll like stand, longitudinally up and down in that position, like buoys essentially, and they'll gather in in a circle around the diver or whatever, and they will all project their certain sounds, and it's so it's so powerful. I mean, they could kill you in an instant with how powerful that sonic wave is, that sonic pulse, but they can also regulate it to provide profound healing effects. And the dolphins obviously have this capability as well. So there are services in Hawaii and stuff where like cancer patients can go and get sound healing from the dolphins. The dolphins will come up and provide sonic healing, and so it's incredible stuff. And I mean, we're just now tapping into just how profound, especially the cetacean, which is whales, dolphins, cetacean consciousness is, especially their ability to, their knowledge of sonic resonance. And I mean, this gets us into like John Lilly and the echo wave, and the Lilly wave, and and it gets into like sonic mind control and all sorts of different, I mean, that could go off into all sorts of different tangents.
Sperm whale can click at about 236 decibels. It's the loudest animal on the planet. Sperm whales can hear each other in the ocean from hundreds, even thousands of miles away. Some researchers believe that they're able to keep in contact with one another through these clicks on other sides of the planet. These clicks are so powerful in the water that they can blow out your eardrums easily, and they could actually vibrate a human body to death. So when you're diving with them, it's a little sketchy. What I'm going to show you now is a video of some free divers that I ended up hanging out with. I wasn't with them during this expedition, but I was. About 6 months later, we went on a trip together, and I had the same experience. So the clicks you're going to be hearing are not coming from a boat. They aren't coming from a camera. These are the whales clicking these guys literally from the inside out to see what they're all about. And the clicks were so powerful that one of these guys put out his hand to stop a whale from running into him, and his hand actually was paralyzed for about 4 hours afterwards. So he learned not to keep out his hand in front of him when he was diving. This is an emerging discipline of research, and it's pretty sketchy. But this is what it's like. I'm not going to talk over this. We're going to play this kind of loud so you can really get an experience of what this is all about. There we go. Okay. So you're going to notice the whale's going to flip on its belly. That's where it collects those echoes underneath its jaw. They don't use ears underwater. So he's getting a really good look at him right now. He's diving down. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. Why the hell would anyone want to do that? I know that was pretty loud for all of us, but trust me, in the water, it's like 4 million times louder. And once you're hanging out with the whales for a long time, this didn't happen to me, but it happened to these guys, their bodies started heating up from being pelleted with all of that energy after a while. Again, this is pretty sketchy stuff. It's strange to do, but it's important to note that these guys are fascinated by whales. They don't necessarily want to free dive with them this closely, but they have to, because it turns out the only way to really study these animals up close is by free diving with them, by approaching them in your natural form and interacting with them in that way. Scuba doesn't work. It's too loud. Submarines don't work. Same thing. Robots don't work. They freak them out. But when you free dive with them, this amazing paradigm shift occurs. And they not only don't swim away, but most of the time the whales will turn around and welcome you into the pod. Sometimes they orient themselves vertically and do this very weird sort of new age thing around you as they're clicking. It's extremely intense. So the next question you're probably asking yourself is like, why research sperm whales? Well, it turns out that those clicks you heard, they aren't just used for echolocation. Sperm whales and dolphins also use clicks for communication. And inside of those clicks is probably one of the most sophisticated forms of communication we've discovered on the planet. Could be more sophisticated than human language. Now, I know that sounds completely nuts to all of you, and it certainly sounded nuts to me when I first started researching this stuff a couple of years ago. But just consider a couple things. The sperm whale brain is about 6 times the size of ours. This is a picture of sperm whales facing us head on, and that top thing is their nose, and behind that is their brain. Now, sperm whales also have a neocortex. In humans, the neocortex is believed to govern higher level functions like conscious thought, future planning, and language. Well, sperm whales not only have a neocortex, but theirs is about 6 times the size of ours. Sperm whales also have spindle cells. These are long and highly developed brain structures that neurologists have associated with compassion, love, suffering, and you guessed it, speech. All of those things that make humans human and separate us from great apes. Well, sperm whales not only have spindle cells, but have them in a far larger quantity than we do. And they've had them for 15 million years longer than we have.
But yeah, it's incredible, the power of the whales, especially for sonic healing. And I mean, I could go deeper into that, but I would have to refresh myself on those presentations. But yeah, it was just an awesome sync.
Maybe just add in
Dolphin.
to that particular aspect, since you've seen Arrivals, and thank you for mentioning the title, because I mentioned it before and totally was lost on it. To me, from what I could gather, this was like in my world, of course, obvious promotion video actually for, first of all, for the idea of nonlinear space-time and, higher dimensional consciousness, but also basically for the cetaceans, because in Arrivals, they communicate through these kind of images, which then they realize is holographic and so on. And just as I heard now, starting with John C. Lilly, but apparently just very recently it was, completely confirmed or whatever, that of course dolphins and whales and cetaceans don't have a verbal language, mainly like we do, but actually communicate in holograms.
Arrival is a great movie. Go ahead, Colin. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. And again, they communicated in the movie Arrival. They communicated with those glyphs, which were essentially they were circular rings, which obviously was symbolic of the Ouroboros, which is the eternal cycle of no beginning, no end. But again, that's that circular spherical glyph, which is exactly the same method of communication. Sorry, my neighbor just started sawing something. I'll probably have to go inside here.
It's all good.
We can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, so those circular glyphs are exactly the same, as you were saying, as the dolphin and the whale songs are as well. That's what we've shown through our cymoscopes, is showing that all sonic propagation is actually spherical, so they're spherical, but in order to travel, it has to be like more cylindrical. So it has to be like tubular, which is exactly the same as how electrical transmission works throughout the universe. Is through helical Birkeland currents, essentially currents, electrical currents, or whether they're fluid currents, oceanic currents. Or sonic currents, the same way that we communicate, verbally or sonically. So that's essentially what the symbolic nature of those glyphs in the movie Arrival were. And of course, what gets even more interesting is the beings, the extraterrestrial beings or interdimensional beings in that movie, as well as they were called septopods, or they were heptapods, which was they were 7-legged, basically like space octopuses, essentially. Which that's interesting. That just brought up a sync in my mind of in the Star Wars universe. Most recently, it was actually in the series Rebels, which is an animated series that they extended off of. Was they included a new species, and it's basically a space whale species that are called, what are they called? I can't remember off the top of my head. They're called purgles, and I think they showed it briefly in the new sequel trilogy series as well. I think it was in The Force Awakens, or not The Force Awakens, in the most recent one. They also showed a brief
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker. They showed the Purgle also, but in the series, the Purgle had a very special role, is that they could actually travel. They had the ability naturally, organically, to travel. Through hyperspace, which is space essentially faster than light travel. And so in the Star Wars series, that was the significance of the Purgle, was they carried this profoundly telepathic consciousness of knowing how to traverse the entire cosmos through using these hyperdimensional lanes. And there's a lot more to that, but it's, again, just really interesting synchronicities.
Synchronicities always dolphinitely abound. Kind of some things that came up to mind while you were saying that. The guy who wrote, an American writer named Ted Chiang, Chiang, he wrote The Story of Your Life, which is the basically the manuscript or whatever, transcript, I forget what the word is, the screenplay, I guess, or whatever, but it wasn't a screenplay, it was like a short story for Arrival. And I read that, and it's actually better than the movie in a way, if you haven't read it, but there's actually a collection of short stories he had. There's like 10 of them. I forget what the book is called, but if you look up Ted Chiang, basically there's some of the headiest stuff. There's an Ouroboros kind of Tower of Babel story where people are built, like Jews are going up this thing for months and get to the top, and they break through the fucking whatever the filament, or whatever the flat earthers are kind of into. there's consequences in that. And that my favorite short story of all those short stories, there's like 10 of them, was literally, it was the most hallucinogenic thing I've ever read. It felt like I was coming up on acid and then peaking. Basically, the premise is this guy's like, well, I'm a part of this study group, I guess. The government's giving us like pills to increase our brains capacity or, you know, whatever, and I'm in this group, and it starts like working, and then he starts becoming paranoid and aware of other groups. They start becoming, it just like goes from there, and it turns into like arch nemesis saying secret words that'll cause self-destruction in your DNA to like explode, and all just crazy shit. It was like the most insane. Like I should look up the title at some point, but I would highly suggest reading that. I read that in Switzerland at one point, and I was like high off of the reading. I was just like, I've never read anything like this. It's kind of like Finnegan's Wake is weird. This was like the most exponential growth in a novel form, or, you know, short story form that I ever read. It was just like, by the end, I was just like, oh my God, who is what out here? And what you were kind of talking about, Colin, reminded me a little of something that I'd seen in one of your presentations. I'm not sure exactly which one. Probably Symbols of Power or something like that. But it's one of these awesome YouTube videos. I can't highly suggest them enough. They're very chock full of data, and they're pretty long, so just get your popcorn and put your thinking caps on, kids. But at some point, there was a guy kind of, you had an excerpt of a guy talking about the nature of acoustics in human speech. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, that's John Stewart Reed. He's actually I don't know if he invented the Cymoscope, but he's the main researcher doing the research on the Cymoscope. He's actually one of the ones who did the Dolphin language, the Dolphin the Dolphin communication, and mapped it with the Cymoscope. And basically mapped out the cymatic pattern of which are, again, they're cylindrical. They're like cylindrical, tubular, essentially like in Donnie Darko, where the portal opens up out of his chest and, you know, leads him as like essentially a visible timeline of where, you know, his future action is going to lead. That's essentially how, you know, not just sonic communication propagates, you know, through space or through time, but it's also how the actual structure of it, which again, everything is like, because, you know, spheres obviously can't propagate. I mean, they can expand and they can contract, but for in terms of like propagation throughout time and space, it has to be cylindrical, which is exactly how it happens, you know, electrically. That's how Birkeland currents transfer electricity and electric currents throughout the entire universe. And those are obviously those currents that we view as looking like, you know, like a brain map, like a neural network throughout the universe, is the same way as. But yeah, so that's John Stewart Reed. He's the guy doing the Cymoscope research. He's really incredible. It's incredible stuff. And you were mentioning in that book that you were talking about.
It's called Stories of Your Lives and Others, which is kind of a collection of short stories that he had published. The first one being Tower of Babylon. There's a different one, Story of Your Life, which is what turned into the movie we're talking about. Something called 72 Letters. That's pretty ratchet. The Evolution of Human Science, I'm pretty sure, is the one I'm thinking of, with the basically mind expansion drug, kind of like Limitless, but like meets X-Men. It was crazy. Anyway, go ahead.
Interesting. Yeah, but you had mentioned something that that stood out to me, and that was essentially, it was like a sort of destructive power of destructive power of sound, which of course, you know, everything sonic, or not just sound waves, but, you know, every type of resonant wave in the universe, which everything is nothing but resonant waves. It's either constructive, conjunctive, phase conjugation, or destructive interference patterns, which we experience. The way we feel that is either good, quote unquote, good vibes or bad vibes, like people that get negative vibes from anything that I'm presenting or anything that anyone says, or, you know, whatever. That's just how the resonances are conflicting, you know, between their own torus field. And if their torus field is vibrating at a very slow rate, and someone like mine who is vibrating at a very fast, extremely high rate. So when those two come together,
and there's a reason I want to say really quick for this, but astrologically, when the two come together, I'll tell you in a second. Go ahead.
But yeah, Rafael will appreciate this. Is that's like Bashar had talked about that. Is essentially it's like
Exactly.
it's two gears coming together, and if one gear is spinning at a high rate and the other gear is spinning slowly, then the two gears conflict and something breaks essentially. So which causes cognitive dissonance, and essentially it's just one person feels negativity where the other person isn't feeling negative at all, nor is it negative. It's just inherent, resonant patterns.
Just to briefly say what I was going to punctuate there, I'm looking at your chart, and you have 12th house Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus, so you are highly resonant, and it's deep magic there, Pisces kind of vibes. But the Jupiter's in Taurus, but the Mercury and Venus are in Gemini, so in a lot of ways you are kind of a collective conduit for information technology.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite. Obviously, that's one of my most prominent aspects in my chart. Is I call it Mercury making love to Venus in Gemini, which are the twins. So it's essentially Mercury and Venus are. It's literally that's literally the Hyros Gamos right there in my chart. It's literally the holy matrimony, the divine union of masculine and feminine archetypes of Aphrodite and Hermes, which is literally hermaphrodite. That's literally where the term hermaphrodite comes from, is from Hermes Aphrodite, which is the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And of course, so it's just right there. It's so powerful. And
it's like that GIF from fucking Jurassic Park. Well, there it is. It's like, yeah, I can't unsee this.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting, and it's amazing. I'm always amazed at how it really does manifest itself powerfully. Not just in my chart, but in many others charts and everything. But it's very prominent in observing like anything that I put out, because obviously it's that powerful union of both masculine and feminine archetypes, which is the right and left hemisphere archetypes. Of the Mercury, Hermes is associated with logic, reason, weights and measures, literally the measures of science, analytical measures, as well as communication between worlds from higher to lower. Mercury was Hermes was the messenger of the gods, and the only one who could travel and carry messages from Olympus, or the realm of the gods, essentially from heaven to hell, to the underworld. He was the only one who could transfer messages between worlds, from
Right.
the higher worlds to the lower worlds. And it's speech, intellectualism, thought, consciousness, writing, and then, of course, the feminine aspect, Venus, Aphrodite, is beauty, love, poetry, abundance in terms of finance. And again, Hermes is also finance and weights and measures as well. So it's this powerful combination. And I feel that's why, that's why it comes out in the sort of videos and the sort of syncs that I make without even trying. It tends to blend both the mystical as well as the actual, the tangible, the rational, and I feel that's what makes it so unique and stands apart from a lot of other things that are usually either just, they're sort of channeled messages, so they're very mystical but not very well grounded in like actual research that you can use to that you can use to awaken other people who.
Your thumb might have slipped, Cullen.
Oh crap! Yeah, it did.
There's that 12th house Mercury. That's all good. I have a 12th house Mercury too. We're channels, but keep going with what you're saying.
But yeah,
because
so
straight up, your content is like one of the reasons that Team Rabbit Hole exists. Like, it is Rabbit Hole-esque. It just flows and flows and flows, and it's hitting you in the face with discrete data. Like, there's lily pads to hop on, but it's like it's like Frogger or something. There's an infinite amount of lily pads to hop on. It just goes and goes and goes and goes. It's dope.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, and that's exactly the purpose. And I mean, that's what I'm intentionally trying to do. Is I'm trying to reach the people who are not. I'm trying to reach the people who aren't conscious or who aren't aware of, these type of things that we're interested in. And, but I'm sure most people are interested in this type of stuff. It's just they don't have that sort of...
If only they knew.
Yeah, it's just they don't have that lily pad to jump, to that sort of rung on the ladder to actually, to cling onto, a sort of, foothold to grasp that will allow them to then reach higher and to progress further. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to provide actual real world tangible models of, of things that can be easily understood and that can be easily fact checked and verified. And then, you can use that as a stepping stone to move even further, whether it's into, the sort of abstract or the more mystical, or whether it's into the more tangible and, diving deeper into actual, cited references and cited resources, so it's that combination. I'm trying to provide both aspects and merge the two worlds of science and spirituality, because they are one and the same. And they both reinforce and support each other. So it's
not mutually exclusive like that. I get what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's funny thing with the chart, like I'll just say really quick because I'm not looking at it, but it's off the top of my head. With Jupiter, it's in the 12th house, so it's Jupiter's about like more. How do you like it? Kind of Dumbledore, Santa Claus vibes, where it's just like you're blessed here. It's like, where are you blessed? You're blessed with the collective. And in a sense, you're blessed with the beauty of communication, but in a poetic way. I mean, you're very much a wordsmith. Like I think you called yourself a wordsmith on Facebook. It's like that's, even if you were working at McDonald's, you'd be like making puns with the menu and like all sorts of crazy shit. It'd be like, it doesn't surprise me that this is how it's manifesting for you. So it's funny because it's almost like the dream of logic or something like that. It's like paradoxical. It's like viewed, because Venus is exalted in the 12th house to the degree that like Neptune rules it, and Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. So it like wants to be there. Neptune's like a spiritual beauty. So I think you understand like the kind of replete poetry of nature and reality, but in some way you're here because it's in Gemini, these 12th house stuff. It's like you're here to bring it down into the logical framework that is grokkable, basically.
Yes, exactly. Is and that's it's not just me. That is the work that we're all here to do. Is we're here, and our purpose is to bring more of the mystical and more of the mystery into reality, to bring
into
the more
consciousness, like or like awareness, I guess is the better way to put it.
Yeah,
conscious awareness.
Yeah. To make the intangible tangible. And that is our purpose. And that is what consciousness at large as a whole is doing. I mean, that is to bring more spirit into matter. And, that's our purpose, to do that individually as, in our physical bodies, is to bring more electricity, more life energy, more chi, more vitality, more love, more beauty into our physical body. To strengthen it, to hone it, to sharpen it, to achieve mastery over that, because our body everything is energy. And so it's the path and the journey is about bringing more energy and coalescing more of that energy into coherent form, which is exactly what through the process of sacred geometry, because that's what sacred geometry is it's
like the manifestation template, basically.
Yes, it's literally the mathematical structure which is utilized in order to organize more energy into more coherent patterns, which provides more power. And it provides, so this is how, computer science is progressing, is, you can store more memory by things becoming more fractal. And by things becoming more fractal means that it becomes more coherent. And so that's exactly how the human brain functions as well. There are those ridges or lobes in our brains. There are those, I forget exactly what they're called off the top of my head, but the little lobes.
No pun intended.
Yeah, the little ridges in our brains. The more of those that you have, it means the more cognitive capacity that you hold. It means you can memorize more things more quickly and more easily. You can recall things more quickly. It means you can compute complex equations or more complex tasks more rapidly and more quickly. And that's the same way that, our computers are modeled after, is and because that's the same way that the whole universe and all of matter and all of structure forms, is through that sacred geometrical pattern. And this will get so much more powerful in these new films that I started working on last year, in 2018, January last year, about the actual, I've literally mapped the entire sacred geometrical structure of the human torso as well as the human brain, and it's fractal. It's literally mapped to literally every single, and I've gone very deep on it. And although I'm not a mathematician, I'm not I'm not super logical and super analytical. Whoops.
Your thumb just slipped.
Yeah, my thumb keeps slipping. But so what was the last thing that you heard?
You're not particularly analytical, but it's funny because it's a paradox. You're very intuitive. Your Cancer's first house. If you're here to be sensitive, the thing you're sensitive with is the beauty of information.
Yeah, but where I was going with that was
your videos, fractals, Ella's fractal.
Where I was going with that was that I'm not going to reveal too much because this is so mind blowing that
what a tease.
That I want people to actually, once you see it, it will just...
I saw the ribcage thing. If that's what you're talking about, in some of the more recent stuff.
Yeah, that's only a small part of it. That's actually just a... So I was contemplating when I put that out in the Symbols of Power Part 4 film, I was contemplating, all right, well, I just showed that and that's part of it. So I was like, now, if I show part of it, now I have to go through the whole and I have to show the whole. But that would have been, like 10 hours long. And that's a whole other video I'm working on in and of itself. So I was like, I've got to learn to cut myself off, at certain points, because I can't just go forever. It's too much work. It's impossible to do things that way. But I was like, I teased it that way. So now I have to go that. And that's what happens. It's like, I start revealing one thing and then I'm like, all right, so I revealed that. Now I have to show the entire thing. Otherwise you're not getting the whole picture. You're not getting the whole story. And people complain all the time. They're like, oh well, this that doesn't make any so what's the point of this? It doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, yeah, it doesn't make any sense from the perspective that you're seeing it, because you're only seeing a small part of it. And that's why I'm like, I have to show the entire thing, because otherwise you're not getting the full picture. And that's why they have to be so damn long. And that's what
never apologize for this shit. First of all, I just want take a deep breath. Basically, for those with eyes to see, on the one hand, you want to make things palatable and marketable or whatever, digestible, soluble for people. But at the same time, people who go down the rabbit holes, like me, for example, I've committed to many of those hours of films, and not to say I remember it all, but obviously it impacted me, and I'm willing to get you on this kind of show and spread the good word, right? So it's like, David Bowie once said, never play to the audience, basically, or never play to the gallery, I think is what he specifically said. It's like, you got to just kind of do your thing, and if you're sitting there worried, and as a Cancer with a Chiron in first house too, you're going to maybe be worried about, I don't know, people pleasing to the degree that it actually destroys you in some weird way, or it stalls you. So just be careful. I'm saying as your friend, do your thing, be sensitive, which you naturally will be, to things, but don't make them the driver. You're the driver. You're taking your vision where it needs to go. And if all you do is stop and listen to naysayers, oh, it's 4:44, so this is important for you to hear. Don't just, what happens if the race car driver always stops at the pit stop every lap? You know what I mean? It's like, he'll never finish the race, but if he just goes, and then when it's seriously critical to stop, he will. You see what I mean? You got to trust your intuition with that a little more, and not maybe placate as much.
Yeah, true. Yeah, thank you for that, and for
Definitely.
that for that encouragement and for the feedback, because that is important and that does matter, and it definitely helps as well. But so where I was going was that anyways, it's going to be so absolutely mind-blowing, because it's showing, I've mapped the entire geometric structure of the brain. And you saw some of that in what I showed with the phi ratio in the Symbols of Power Part 4, as well as how it corresponds with the human torso and the torus field, which is, that's nothing new. We've known for eons, the essence of the torus field and the human torso, but it's but these new things that I'm adding to it, it's taking things to a whole other level, and not in a totally groundbreaking level, but it's providing what it's doing is it's going deeper into that vortex. It's going deeper into the fractal. So as that fractal, you go deeper into it, things expand more and more. So that's
kind of reminds me of The Wizard
doing.
of Oz, where it's like you're not doing a whole new movie, you're going from black and white to color. You're just going to super saturate the situation a little more effectively.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's like filling, it's like shading in, the color of that black and white image, that where we had the structure, we had the map essentially, but I'm filling in the details of that map. I'm going in and shading in a lot of that blank detail that wasn't there prior. And so that's what it's doing. But so I can't wait until I have the time and the energy to actually get all of that stuff finished, because it's going to be so mind-blowing. Like I can't even.
So stoked, dude. Your north node, which is your destiny point, essentially is conjunct your Mars in Pisces in the 10th house. You're here to be you are not kidding when you're like, I can hear you getting excited. It's like you're here to act for the dream in the highest degree, or whatever, in like an institutionalized way, if you want to put it that way. It's like you're taking the imagination and institutionalizing it, if you want to put it that way. That's your destiny, and when you start doing it, it actually activates you into more action. So that's why you get kind of lost in your own production, and where you're like, oh my god, I don't even know where to go. It's like you just need to have some like feedback from the right people every now and then, but you need to kind of do your own thing no matter what, like, because this is what you're here for, dude. Like, what you're doing is what you're here for. Never fucking doubt that.
All right, guys, and so this was something I had no idea was going to come up. This actually just came up immediately right now while I was editing the visuals for this radio show, and something clicked in my mind and reminded me of the stage setup from Madonna's, I forget which year it was, from one of Madonna's recent Super Bowl halftime shows. And I remember that specific clip shown from above where they showed the stage, the layout of the stage, and it reminded me of that image, because I've got it in my archives from several other times I've used the symbolism, explaining that in several of my other videos. And so I just cut that image and I put it into this one real quick, and I realized, oh my god, like, I don't know how the hell this came together, but my subconscious mind just literally reminded me of this, and it synced this thing together insanely. I mean, it's blowing my mind. Look at the two red squares down exactly where the Vortex Based it has to be conscious. They have to have known about the Vortex Mathematics, and they are literally showing every single point of the numbers on stage, except for the number 9. But look at exactly where the points of the 3 and the 6 are highlighted by those red squares on the stage. Exactly where the flux points of the 3 and the 6, they flux and they alternate. Exactly. This is it's blowing my mind. It's absolutely astonishing. And the way that these syncs just come together in such mind-blowing ways. Like this just happened just now while I was editing. It's amazing. I mean, so I had already synced the Unicursal Hexagram with the Vortex Mathematics symbolism here, and then it just reminded me of the Madonna stage, of Madonna's halftime ritual performance, which is a sex magic ritual performance. That's what the Vortex Mathematics is. It's the spinning vortices, which are your spinning vertices of your urogenital triangles coming together and pulsing at the flux point of creation, at the heart of creation, of reproduction, where you pulse and you fluctuate between each other. Your energy pulsates between and circulates through your fields. It's blowing my mind at the 0 point where your ignition point, where you ignite that spark that creates the spark of life. We'll go so much deeper into that in many, many future videos. Yeah, and I do like, the thing is, like, I do get really excited about it. Like, You literally have no idea. Like when I when I find something like this comes, from wherever it comes from, it usually something like this starts from like either something as small as just I will find the etymology of a single word, or I'll see something as trivial as like a Facebook meme or something like that, or I'll see a symbol or something that syncs with something else somewhere, and I'll decide to maybe maybe I should write a post or make a meme or an image or something of that, and it ends up turning into like a 6-hour Symbols of Power film that I never intended, I never expected.
But that's the beauty of the dream, man. You're a fractal. That's how it works. Like you never intend to keep spiraling, but it's like that's how it works. Never feel bad about what you are. You are what you is, as Frank Zappa would say. So I think you're here, honestly, to be a strong, poetic voice for the dream to become actualized in material form. I mean, that's with you. I kind of want to talk about metaphysics at some point and stuff, like and just weird stuff. Because I think when I talk to you and I look at your stuff, it brings it all here. Like here and now is the magic, as opposed to like heaven somewhere else or other dimensions and all this stuff, which may or may not exist in your models. I don't know, but like it seems like all those kind of platonic ideal forms or whatever coalesce to the zenith point being the now, earth, the body, the brain structure, the mind, like the physical incarnation, the holiness of this incarnation. It's not just some 3-year-old drew this thing. It's like God designed this, or however a consciousness at the highest degree is manifesting this always, it seems.
Yeah, it's that's why I love this type of work and this type of exploration and this type of study, is because that's just, it's like that's what it's all about. It's all about learning the magic and the power of what is already here, is what has always been here, is what is here now, what has been here now, and that's what matters. I mean, people can focus on like the afterlife, or the infinite oneness of whatever heaven or or hell, or whatever these concepts that they want to if they want to focus on those, then that's fine. But I'm interested in the magic of knowing what is, and knowing what is here right now, already right in front of us, right within us, surrounding us at all moments, and not just the energy around us, but the structure of nature.
I was going to say the shape of the brain, the inner sanctum, like all of it, like all the stuff you get into, it makes it almost, basically, it's like if Dawkins DMT or acid, it feels like to me sometimes. It's like super structural and materially reductionistic at a level, but then it's like the illumination of that which is. So it's like a cross-section of the brain is Ganesh, and it's like, holy shit, did we know that? Or like, is this where the myth is coming from? Or, it starts making things, it tethers me back to this instead of looking. I mean, I think it's healthy and good to look out, because ultimately when we look out, we're looking within in some weird Ouroboros kind of like thing. I'm not even sure. Like we're in ourselves, experiencing ourselves. And do you see what I'm saying? Like the further out we go, the further in we're going, or some shit like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like Russian nesting dolls, and that's how everything is there is no, ultimately, so that's I mean, the reality is that there really is no outside of us, because what is outside of us is actually just the inside of a larger version of us, inside of a larger being, which we call God. And we don't know so that's what we know. Ultimately, we do know this for a fact. We know that we are living inside of a larger organism. That's what the objective hard science proves. I mean, so when people say that there's no existence or proof of a God, they're simply not looking in the right context. And they're looking for there not to be a God, because they're using their own preconceived, expectations of what we would perceive a God to be. But what the actual objective science, the math, the geometry, the biology, these various aspects,
the shape, the color and the shape, as the Foo Fighters would say.
Yeah, all these various aspects of science prove to us that we are living inside of a larger organism. But what we don't know is what that organism is or how exactly it functions. But we do know we are just smaller organisms inside of a larger organism, which, science calls a superorganism, which is simply, it's a collective of many smaller organisms, such as a colony of ants is actually a larger superorganism of itself, which is, that's what the colony is, or what the hive is, or what the swarm of birds are, or the school of fish, or in our own body, we have our certain individual cells which all come together and they work together to form organs. They organize in order to form organs. So the cells come together. First they form tissues. The tissues are the structure that forms the barriers and the boundaries of that organ. And so they organize to form the organs. And organ comes from Greek ergos, which means to do that which does work. And so that's what the cells are each doing. They're each doing work. They're doing their individual job. And so that's what humans are doing. And we're just
cells in the body of God kind of thing.
Exactly. We are literally...
Which kind of maybe plays into the whole parable of like, hey, are you doing like the whole like talents thing? It's like, did you bury your talent or did you cash it in or whatever? In the Bible, it's like God, the parable being like a landowner like gives like people on his land money and he's like, I'll be back later. It's like, we've been tasked with certain functions, and it's oddly, because of like existential nihilism and all this stuff, we've forgotten that nature of our role. Like, in some weird way, we democratized out so much that we chose to like forget. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but the point is, what you're saying makes sense.
Yeah, where you're going is exactly where I was thinking about going as well. So that's exactly it. And so what happens when the individual cell forgets its unique function and its unique role? Well,
cancer, basically.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens. That is exactly what cancer is. Cancer is what happens when each individual cell, it literally forgets its original purpose. It forgets its original unique role as, say, a lung cell or a heart cell or a neural cell or an endothelial cell, whatever role that specific cell has a task to perform. When it forgets that role, it becomes a uniformitarian. It becomes a
malignancy, at least, which is malaligned.
What happens is it loses its individuality and it becomes a part of the collective. It becomes a part of the Borg, of the hive mind, of what the cancer, the tumor cell, or the tumor actually is. So it loses its individual role, and the actual science, the clinical science of nutritional lifestyle medicine shows that what is it? Is it the lectins or is it it's the phytates in beans, in legumes, actually serves a specific biochemical function of allowing the cell to remember its unique individual role. So it allows the cell to individuate again. And so that's how the phytates in beans actually reverse cancer, and they actually prevent. So this is how, and then you get into all the low carbers and the carnivore dieters, and everyone's putting out all these garbage books, New York Times bestsellers about the plant paradox and why plants have poisons that are their plants are toxic to humans. The phytates are because phytates are one of the what are called anti-nutrients, because they block the absorption of certain minerals such as zinc or iron or some of these other micronutrients. But
why are they going off? Go ahead. You're going to go there. Why are they thinking they're reading that wrong? I guess. Yeah.
What they're missing is they're thinking, these are just plant toxins. They're dangerous for us. But the point is that that's not what the overall totality of the science shows. Is that that's the role of phytates. Is that's how they prevent and they actually reverse the process of cancer. And back to the point, was by means of individuation. So it allows the cell to realize, oh hey, I'm actually not a fascist socialist, communist, should be walking around with the same uniform and the same, going along with the same function, the same role, and the same goose step, and lockstep with everybody else. So that's literally what cancer is that's cancer. Cancer is when things become uniform and they lose their individual purpose, and it just goes along with the process of proliferation and, just for rampant out of control spread and to consume energy. That's what the cancer cell does, is it literally just consumes all of the glucose, all of the sugar, all of the energy of the original cells in order to expand and to multiply itself. And to what end? For what purpose? Like, what is cancer's ultimate purpose? Well, it doesn't have any
it's like
other
mob
purpose.
mentality, kind of.
It's
like gone wrong.
It's literally mob mentality. It is inorganic mentality, essentially. It doesn't serve any actual function or role other than just to simply, it's like a virus, essentially. It is like a virus because that's the role of a virus, is literally just to proliferate. It does, although, don't get me wrong, viruses actually do have a more important function. They do actually spur on evolution, and the viruses do.
Do you think they're aware of that, or are they just like a cog in the machine of becoming?
No, I don't think viruses have any specific consciousness to it. I don't even think as a collective. I don't think there's a collective, but there is an intelligent consciousness that flows through all of, structure and reality. And so viruses are essentially in virology, there's, theories that viruses are actually the most primordial form of life, even though they're not considered living or dead. They're sort of in between life and inorganic.
If we can learn anything, we have to be loose with our presuppositions and our models, because at one point people were like, oh, cells are like corks, like bottle corks or whatever, like Robert Van Leeuwenhoek or whatever the fuck. Like, he broke through a paradigm, and you know what I'm saying? Like, we got to hold loosely because we don't know what these things are. Just like with the whale song, it's like we're stumbling into the nature of the reality more and more every day. Rafael, you've been awfully quiet, and I know he's been going on a tear, and I don't want to interrupt you, Colin, actually, at all, but he said a lot that might be picking up your ears. I wanted to know if you had any comments.
You have a specific question, maybe. Otherwise,
we're getting into virology, but then we were talking about fractal reality and just the whole, this being the inverted machine aware of itself at the highest levels, like, as opposed to out. It's like, I don't know where you want to go with any of that, but those are the things I was thinking might be kind of pinging on your radar.
Well, all I can say is that, it's all about, as you already had mentioned, realizing the mysteries right in front of us. It is infinite. However, even though it is infinite, at least aspects of it can be made visible. That is a continual process of understanding and then, in a sense, elevating oneself through different views of the ability to recognize patterns and, let's say, higher order. And I just like to thank Cullen for pointing it out in this hermaphrodite way, properly understood.
Exactly.
Now
let me just take your steam out there.
No, you didn't. I was actually running out of steam there. But now everyone's going to make fun of me for the hermaphrodite thing.
No, it's perfect, and it's important because so often, I mean, as you very well know, symbols are defined in one particular sense, and there's too many symbols and too many words even to name in one show that have been defined in a very one-sided sense, which could, in some perspectives, even be deemed ignorant or arrogant if, then one particular definition is taken as the definition and all the other perspectives are left out. So I'd like to thank you for bringing that up. Positive definitions, that's what it's all about.
What you kind of just said there reminded me of cancer, where it's like, well, if we get the wrong definitions and they spread incorrectly, it's almost like the scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's like, burn her, she's a witch. And they're like, how do you know? She's like, I'm a newt. And it's like, clearly not a newt. And it's like, oh my God, they're just ignorant as fuck. This is the worst.
And just to make one more connection, you may want to refer to Colin, because you spoke now about cancer. And as far as I understand it, it's actually super simple. Ultimately, there is a cellular voltage. So it's very much to do with the electricity you mentioned, which then, spiritual individuals may call the energy or the vibe or whatever. But it can also be measured in real cellular electricity, and this is a prime factor for whether a cell is functioning correctly. And if it is on very low voltage, or however you want to call it, low connection, low consciousness, I don't know, then you get all of these malignant ideas. And I liked how you mentioned it, that then the cell forgets its true purpose. Let's holographically project that onto the human collective and see where there is low voltage, low vitality, lots of confusion and all kinds of deterrents to a healthy lifestyle. Those are usually the individuals or groups or let's hope it's not the majority, I don't know, that seems to more forget its purpose and its divine connection and all of that than those who are, vital and usually then also somewhat spiritual or at least driven and so on and so forth. So I like the connection between the cells and the humans. It's probably the same game. It's all about the energy and the voltage available. If it's not there, you're getting into all kind of cancerous, problematic territory. However, if the voltage is established, all kinds of wonderful things are possible and things are just working as they should cosmically.
The spirit goes where it wants. Maybe that's the electricity of the fucking cosmos, I'm realizing.
Yeah, and it's not just specifically about like low voltage per se, but it's about being in the right. It's about being in the most conducive range necessary for essential functioning. Because it is all the electrical signal. Is essentially it's the electromagnetic field, and the field is what ultimately determines. It's the signal that sends out the actual chemical signals within the body, which the body communicates primarily through the electrical signal, which is what signals the chemical response. Then the chemicals.
The information tells the things what to do. Yeah,
exactly. It's the field that tells the actual chemicals how to build the certain structures and what structures to build. And that's what cancer is it's literally so there are several different biochemical factors that cause cancer cells to proliferate. There's the mTOR pathway. There's the IGF-1 pathway, which basically causes, because we need these certain pathways such as TOR and IGF-1, which are necessary for the growth of a human being. I mean, you need cells to proliferate, from when you're a child in order to have your physical body grow into an adult. And so that's where IGF-1 comes in, is responsible for cellular proliferation. But where cancer comes in is when that signal is overactive and you're producing too much IGF-1 through one of those pathways. Is animal protein causes IGF-1 to proliferate, which causes, which is why animal protein is carcinogenic. That is proven science now, is that animal protein triggers IGF-1, which is carcinogenic. It causes cellular proliferation. So we want to grow. We want our cells to grow and divide and expand. But that's mostly during youth and through childhood until we're fully grown adults. And then we want to turn that signal down so that it's not, overactive, so that we don't, our cells don't just proliferate out of control, which is exactly what cancer is they're receiving that chemical stimulus from our environmental stimulus that we're putting in our bodies, such as, animal protein, as well as the electrification of our environment, so it's not just about low voltage per se, but it's about it's just about correct ratios, it's about correct, and I don't mean correct, I mean the most
balanced and productive.
The most conducive for, the right conditions. It's like the Goldilocks conditions for, proper health and vitality. And so that's, in the same way that our environment, certain electromagnetic signals are extremely healing. I mean, this is how you can repair bone. You can repair bone with electrical signals, but you can also. So it's not just about it can be used either way, because that's just how nature works. Is it just
sounds like the Force or something? Yeah. It's like it can go Sith or Jedi. It's a matter of balancing it properly and polarity or something.
Exactly. That's exactly what the concept of the Force is the the force is regulated through the midichlorians, which the midichlorian is basically the equivalent of essentially like not atoms, but they're like biological.
It's like mitochondrial stuff, right?
Yeah, it's the most basic biological form of the factor of life, as far as the Star Wars universe goes. But so that's exactly it. Is the Force has two sides of it, which both function dynamically to provide the proliferation of life. And George Lucas had expanded on that, and there are actually two sides of the Force, not just dark and light, but there are two aspects of the Force as a whole. Being one is the living force, which feeds what's known as the cosmic force. And so this was most importantly revealed when Qui-Gon reveals this revelation to Yoda, when Qui-Gon manages to reorient his midichlorians and his living force and unites it with the cosmic force in order to reformulate himself into what's called the Force Ghost. And so that's how he's able to then communicate with the world of the living, which is how he communicates this message to Yoda, and provides this task to Yoda from the cosmic force itself, is communicating this message through Qui-Gon to the living force, which is to Yoda. And he tells Yoda what his true mission is, and his mission is to learn this process of how to manifest a consciousness that will exist beyond death.
Here I am, ready for my next instruction, Master Qui-Gon.
Yoda, my old friend, you have come at last.
Qui-Gon Jinn, really you? It is?
It is.
Losing my mind, I am not?
No, my friend, no.
Why have you brought me here?
Follow the light. The light will be your guide.
Strong this planet is with the Force.
It is one of the purest places in the galaxy.
How are you here?
I am a manifestation of the Force. A force that consists of two parts. Living beings generate the living force, which in turn powers the wellspring that is the cosmic force.
Show yourself, can you?
I cannot. My training was incomplete. All energy from the living force, from all things that have ever lived, feeds into the cosmic force, binding everything and communicating to us through the midichlorians. Because of this, I can speak to you now.
See the future. You can.
I exist where there is no future or past.
Know you, who the Sith Lord is.
I can only show you a place where the answers will be revealed to you. Be wary. Give power to that which you fear, and it will show itself to you.
And by manifesting this consciousness, so this is the obvious mystical path of ancient Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism as well.
Taoist alchemy, all this jazz.
Exactly, the Taoist.
Have you seen Midnight Gospel yet?
No, I don't think I've even heard of that one.
Oh, bro. Okay, Midnight Gospel is the new Duncan Trussell thing on Netflix. It's only 8 episodes. They're 20 minutes each. It's basically like if a Team Rabbit Hole podcast was animated. Or like the highlights of the reels of it. It's so psychedelic, it's so crazy. But it gets into one of these. The third episode is about magic with, I think, Damien Eccles or something is his name. It's talking about the solar body and how in a magic that's like the idea. You're trying to get in touch with your solar body so you don't atrophy. It sounds like very much like that, where it's a combination of things. I'll send you the preview to this. I mean, I'm not sure how up into Netflix you are, but it's like, I don't suggest Piddle, and this is like game changing. And it's also meta as fuck because it's about like simulation farming and like podcasting, but they call it like space casting. It's gnarly. You'll love it.
Oh yeah, I have actually seen some of the animations and graphics and stuff.
It's ratchet. Yeah.
Yeah, mostly from you, but yeah, I haven't seen anything about it actually, other than just,
I find that funny. Mostly from you, as it me, as in I'm definitely propagating this thing. It's on Netflix. You got to see it. I'll send you a fucking whatever, like a thing. I mean, it's so short that it's like watching a movie. You'll be done like in an evening. I know time is of the essence to you, but it's not like, you know, fucking Dragon Ball Z or Pokemon where you got to watch like 200 episodes. It's like real quick. And there's a few, like the third episode's about magic. The fifth one's kind of about, I mean, the first one's about drugs. They're all kind of topological, and it kind of culminates. Rafael, have you seen that yet?
Not yet.
Oh, gentlemen, I highly suggest this. Anybody listening, just do it. It's like, you know, take the ride, and like, you know, buy the ticket, take the ride. This is so psychedelic. You don't need to do drugs. It's just surreal. It's like Rick and Morty, but meets, I don't even know. It's less nihilistic in some way. It's actually trying to push the narrative forward into productive things. The fifth episode is about Buddhism, death. It gets into all these kind of crazy things, love, trust. They're kind of topological or whatever. But anyway, I highly suggest it. Maybe we should take a quick music break and kind of collect our thoughts. What do y'all think?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. And welcome back to Team Rabbit Hole episode 90, Sonic Resonance with Cullen Smith.
So, Cullen, out of curiosity, do you have any resonance with the number 9 or 90 or anything like that?
Oh, sorry, what was that?
Well, it's the 90th episode. I didn't know if you had any like natural resonators. I mean, obviously the Hermit card came up, but is there anything? No, number 9, which is the Beatles. But like,
oh yeah. Well, there is. I am not really able to flow off the top of my head, but there is quite a bit. The number 9 is essentially it represents the transcendental. It's the transcendental number that essentially it's the gateway number. It's the gateway, the portal between. You know, it's the vortex of creation. It's literally the higher dimensional. So I'm not an expert.
It's actually like a little fractal if I think about it. I mean, in a weird way.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in vortex based mechanics or vortex mathematics, but I do have a cursory knowledge of it. So I mean, I can explain just the cursory aspects of it, where so the number 9 is literally representative of the vortex itself. I mean, that's literally what the shape of the 9 is, as well as the 6 as well, the inversion of the 9. But so the 9 is the
if 6 were 9 kind of thing. Keep going.
It's the pinnacle of the numbers in the base 10-digit system, because ultimately there is only 9 digits.
Correct. It just repeats with this first symbols.
Yeah, so once you get to 9, you have to return back to the 1 through the portal of the 0. And some of my other friends like Jason Lindgren and Crow777, they wanted me to provide them insights as to how the number 0 is evil and inorganic, and it's a digital construct meant to control us all. And
I think Mayans invented it, is what I recall. But keep going.
Yeah. So they wanted me to help them formulate that theory, and I was like, I'm not going there. I'm not doing that because I don't agree with any of that. I think that's all bullshit.
Interesting. They wanted to demonize a number, I guess.
Yeah, they did. They wanted to push this narrative
by 0.
Yeah, they wanted to push this narrative that it's like, oh, it's a digital artificial construct meant to control us and to, and all of that. But that's ridiculous. I mean, it's, at least from everything that I know and everything that I see and everything that I perceive, that's not how it is. But so anyways, the 9 is the vortex. It returns the consciousness. It's a higher transcendental number in vortex mechanics. It is literally the fulcrum. It's the fulcrum around which all the other numbers formulate
Pivot.
and construct, to create the physical geometry and the physical matter around us. Whereas the 9 exists outside of it's the realm of counter space. It's counter spatial. So everything that we experience, everything that we can communicate with, even in the spiritual realm, is attributed to the numbers 0 through 8, whereas the 9 is transcendental, and it exists beyond. Whereas the 0 is obviously, it's the null and the void. It is the 0 point where all of these mathematical numbers return to and then transmute and become and essentially reunify through the 0, through the void, which is oneness. It's reunification. It's the 0 is literally the letter 0, the signifier, the number 0, the digit, the symbol of the 0 comes from the Mayan symbol, which is this. It's the symbol of the egg. The 0 is the cosmic egg.
It's like the Tao.
Exactly. It is the egg of creation, which is the void. It is the womb. It is the cosmic womb, from which all things arise and to which all things return. And so the 9 is this transcendental aspect, and of course the Tesla obviously stressed the significance of the 3, 6, and 9, whereas the 3 and the 6 are essentially the 2 points that feed the flux field into the fulcrum of the 9. And again, I'm not too experienced in Vortex.
You could have fooled me. You just said way more than I could have articulated.
Well,
so props. I get you don't have like a degree or some shit, but never. Yeah. This is your fucking Chiron in first house with your sun, dude. You can't. I mean, I'm just saying, don't beat yourself up. Like, if people want to come at you, let them, but you don't have to cut out your own legs and be like, "'Tis a flesh wound to yourself," or whatever.
Come at me, bro.
Exactly. So
while we're at it, and
go ahead.
As you're just explaining that particular idea of vortex mathematics, even though you claim not to be an expert, what I'd be curious about also, because I have a personal synchronicity with this, is the 369 in vortex mathematics, the very simple GIF you can find when you search for it. And of course the other numbers kind of create an infinity sign, and the 369 actually create a triangle, which of course for me immediately reminded me of the whole Sasani thing, because of course their flag, Bashar's flag, let's say, is basically a black triangle with blue glow, let's say. If there's anything you would say about the whole 369 idea in relation to that geometric shape.
Yeah, I'm perfectly familiar with everything that you're referencing. I used to be big. I used to be a big fan and a big follower of Bashar. I haven't been for several years, basically just because, for my own personal reasons, I really resonated with a lot of the content that he was providing. But where I sort of started to deviate was when, he wouldn't go, they wouldn't touch on anything regarding, actual, tangible, real things, like such as, people started asking about chemtrails and stuff. And then he was like, "Oh, we will not entertain fearful theories." And the guy was like, right. It's not a theory though. And he's like, "Oh, well, that's what you're creating it by," and that's where I was like, all right, I'm done. But that's just me personally. But I did really dig everything else before that. But yeah, as far as the triangle, the 369 trine, essentially, which exists. So the 369 is that triangle exists outside. That is the counter spatial trine. Whereas it's so for people listening, especially if you're not familiar with at least the symbol of the vortex mechanics symbol,
it's the exact symbol of the fucking. I just want to say this. The
of the Volkswagen logo. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not what I was thinking of. Aleister Crowley's he has a deck, right? The Thoth deck. And on the back of it is a hexagram. He calls it the Universal Hexagram or something like that. Unicursal Hexagram.
Unicursal. Yeah.
It's like, hey, it's always in front of us in various ways. I think he kind of cracked that code in some way.
Well, yeah, he didn't. He didn't.
I'm not a Thelemite, for the record.
Yeah,
but keep going.
Yeah, I'm not either. But in certain aspects, I mean, I don't align with any type of group or anything like that. I just take the bits and pieces that are true and discard the bits and pieces that aren't true. But so yeah, there are obviously very valuable aspects to thelema, and the most valuable aspect of that is, of course, it is the sex magic. It is the hieros gamos and the union of consciousness and the unification through the process of sex magic. So that is all legitimate, and as we all know, that's basically the fulcrum around which the Symbols of Power series and pretty much everything that I do, and not just my stuff, but literally everything that we exist within, everything that
the Shiva Shakti fucking of all polarity, basically.
Yeah, so you guys, it's going to blow your mind once I'm finished with this this entire, basically everything that I know about the esoteric anatomy that I'm working on, especially the new stuff, because I've got an entire series of graphics. I showed some of them. I teased them briefly in the Symbols of Power Part 4 film. I showed some of the new aspects that I've discovered about the Unicursal Hexagram, as I call it. I got it from True Theory. He's the first one I heard calling it a sexagram, but of course it's the same thing. Hex is sex is Latin, whereas hex is Greek. They both mean six. So of course,
and that is the Star of David kind of thing, the triangles within triangles stuff.
Of course, because 6 is literally, it's the number of sex, and this is why. So 666 is actually literally it's sex, which is the triple X. But of course, X is the Roman numeral for 10. So it's not actually. But so there are ways that different things are actually the same thing.
In numerology,
by means. Yeah, by
X
means
is
of
even 6, I think.
Oh wait, go ahead.
No, just briefly to mention, in numerology, if you just count it through, of course you're right, the Roman numeral X is 10, but if you just count it up and reduce it, then X also is 6. If you just count up the numbers from ABC and then reduce it.
Yeah. Kind of what I'm doing with the episodes for the Major Arcana.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't know if I exactly follow. You mean like alphabetically?
It's 24. Yeah, basically it's number 24 to make it simple, right? The 24th letter is X.
2 plus 4?
Y, Z, and 2 plus 4 is 6.
Boom. Okay, there you go. That does it.
See, this is the weird thing. I think what we're doing is almost describing the fucking script of the Matrix in our reality. Like, if there was to be like this kind of, you know what I mean? Like, we're not looking around seeing script like Neo does in the green script of the Matrix stuff. But when we start talking about symbols like this and how it flips and creates other stuff, that's what that is to me. It's like apprehending the script and like almost encircling a script line.
Exactly. Yeah, that is exactly. That's literally what all of this stuff is. It's literally the code to the Matrix. It's literally it's the formula. It's the mathematical vortex mechanics. Vortex math is the entire structure. It is the formula for all of everything in existence, and also everything beyond existence. It's not just this spatial, so when we talk about, the vortex math symbol this is for listeners who are listening to this, and I will, if I upload this to my channel, I will have to, I don't want to because I don't have the time or the energy, but I will have to go through and visually animate like everything that we're talking about right now, so that way
don't make yourself do more work than you want. But I would be way down with that, for the record.
People can for sure, but people can always just go check out your channel.
Yeah,
we'll be honored in any case.
Yeah, true, but I mean, when anytime like I explain something, it's like I have to show them visually, or at least describe it, verbally enough to where they can get an accurate picture.
Give them a model. I got you.
But yeah, so for people listening, I know if you're listening to this, it can be, and you don't already know what we're talking about, like it can sound like absolute gibberish,
jargon.
Like it sounds like it's like, what the hell are they talking about? But so if you don't already know about any of this stuff, just look up the Vortex Mathematics symbol and you'll be able to follow along with everything that we're talking about.
We'll probably make the image for this thumbnail, Rafael. I'm thinking we should just make it that, and then people will see the image the whole time when they're listening to this.
That's a good idea. I actually recently looked at it and it was like, this could be a cool GIF, so we can do that. We'll do that.
But yeah, so there's various other syncs that I've done with Vortex Math all throughout my Symbols of Power content. I've applied it both to the human anatomy, and this is where it's going to absolutely blow everything. This is groundbreaking, and I showed this to Randy Powell, who's he's not a close friend, but we're in communication, and
comrades.
So I sent this to him, and for those who don't know, Randy Powell is basically the protege of Marco Rodin, the guy who discovered, or not discovered, but reintroduced vortex math to the world.
Nice. We're getting out of a yuga, dude, so it's nice when the fucking punctuation's... I mean, the song remains the same, but it's like we forgot, and now we're remembering, and it's like being in a coma and coming out and not being able to speak, and then like learning to speak again or something. It's just like, what the fuck? We all knew this. It's embedded in everything. Go ahead. I'm just fascinated. It's like, I'm glad people are on the... I haven't heard of either of these gentlemen, so I'll have to scope their shit. Maybe even get them on here next time with you or something if you want to loop them in, or something. But the point is, continue. Fascinating. There's pioneers rediscovering our species with amnesia shit all the time.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I can ask Randy if he would be willing to come on, and because I haven't actually had any lengthy conversation with them other than just over Instagram and stuff like that. So I sent him samples of this new anatomy and symbols of power stuff that I'm working on. And I don't want to reveal it yet.
No, I get it. Yeah, I get it. This is the striptease. You're keeping it behind the veil. I got you.
Yeah, it's
irony. Lifting the veil, keeping the veil hard on right now. With all good. Tell us what you're going to
say. That's what she said.
Zing.
But so it's incredible new ways how the vortex mechanics literally creates the entire anatomy and structure of the human physiology, and not just, of course, human physiology, but many other, if all other structures.
As within, so without. I mean, if it's true of us,
it's clearly readily apparent and readily visible, especially in the human anatomy, more so than many other forms in nature. But although some of the more rudimentary forms, such as like seashells and of course plants as well, some of the more lower density, that concept in itself bothers me. Lower density actually means more spiritual, because it's less dense, whereas things in nature such as rocks and structures, those are actually higher density structures because they're more dense, they're more solid, whereas lower So this is where like the whole New Age community has their terminology usually completely opposite of what it actually is.
I want to know Rafael's thought on that.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, what would you suggest? Because I've heard like these discussions. However, I've also heard someone potentially even on this podcast mentioning they were like in a lucid dream state. And in that particular reality, like the grass, because they were on this high spiritual plane, was super dense. So kind of like made of metal or like super sharp and dangerous.
Which is exactly like The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. Keep going, though.
And otherwise, I'm just familiar with the topic, or with the wording, let's say, according to the raw material, where then also it talks about higher density. I can see what you're saying in terms of it is...
it seems like there's an opaqueness to it where the spirit can imprint itself.
Yeah, just briefly to differentiate, maybe, that the one thing would be the idea of physical density, and the other idea may be some type of information or etheric density, and maybe these terms are sometimes used interchangeably and not so clearly defined. Can you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
So in that model, Rafael is kind of saying the law of one raw channel material, which I still have to scope, is talking more about an etheric density, where it's like...
Well, here basically the higher the density, the more etheric the layer. So above us, let's say, would be, collective consciousnesses, angelic, oversouls, higher selves, and all of that. Within that terminology, they would be existing upon a higher density, which in this case would mean
maybe a higher vibration.
Just briefly, in this case would mean higher density would mean less or not physical at all, but yeah, potentially more dense in terms of information available or encompassed or something along those lines.
Because what Colin is kind of talking about is it seems like the purity of the openness of the what we would call mundane plane, like seashells and succulents or whatever. It's open. It's so open that it's allowing the design to rip through it more completely and obviously. Whereas, the higher up we go, it's like, am I misinterpreting what you said, Colin, or is that kind of what you're getting at?
No, not misinterpreting it, but basically, well, the way what I'm talking about is complexification. So obviously, human beings are one of, if not, we consider ourselves the most complex, and our nervous system is definitely one of, if not the most complex structure on planet Earth. But although we're not the most intelligent, cetaceans are obviously more. Their nervous system is actually more complex than ours is. So this is very interesting. I've got some really cool graphics that I put together. Many graphics, as you guys may have seen, about the human brain, but. I don't know if I posted this one anywhere, or if it's still just sitting in my on my hard drive where I don't think I've shared it at all yet. But I've got a graphic that I did about the geometry of the dolphin brain, and it's pretty. I haven't shared that one yet. I was meaning to.
Are we allowed to talk about this?
I don't think I want to share it yet. I don't think I'm ready just yet.
Damn.
It'll show up in something somewhere along the way that I'm working on. But that's the thing, is like, I don't want to, I don't want to like keep all this stuff like under wraps.
Can you kind of allude to what maybe you were getting to without saying it?
Yeah.
Can we feel through the curtain a little here?
I can basically just give it away, but once I give it away, then it's like, it's out there, and then it's it's already out there, and somebody else will put. Somebody else.
Dolphin brains do something cool. We should keep an eye out for Colin's fucking content, because he's gonna drop some hot fire.
Well,
Dylan.
So I guess I'm going to go ahead and flesh this out. Since I mentioned it and brought it up, I'll go ahead and explain it and flesh it out. This is just a small segment of what is actually an entirely separate film that I'm working on. So this is just a small piece of that. So it's sort of totally out of context of the larger picture. But what we're seeing is this specific cymatic frequency, which is a resonant harmonic frequency, and I'm not sure exactly which frequency this is, of the image on the CymaScope. So if anybody knows exactly what frequency this is, please share that information in the comments down below, or send me a message and let me know exactly what structure this is. But it's significant because it is the exact same harmonic geometry that creates the exact structure of the dolphin brain, of the bottlenose dolphin more specifically. And so this structure, it literally creates a perfect equilateral triangle, which is, it fluxes and it alternates between itself, which is essentially through polarities, which is essentially the epitome of vortex based mechanics, and also ties in with what I showed in Symbols of Power Part 2 with the Sacred 9 code, as well as creating the Egg of Life sacred geometry, which literally creates the polarity, which creates the structure of biology itself. It is literally the exact same resonant sonic geometry that creates a certain, I believe it's the Roma tomato, the certain species of tomato. I believe it's the Roma tomato, the cross section, the same exact sonic geometrical structure. And so this is the same exact structure of the flux capacitor shown in the film Back to the Future by Robert Zemeckis. And so it is literally the association between time travel and consciousness of the brain, which is the time travel, and the sonic geometry, which is associated with the cetaceans, as we covered at the beginning of this video, and again associated with the space whales in Star Wars and the theme of time travel or cosmic consciousness. This is exactly why it showed Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the dolphins leaving Earth, and again traveling space travel, and so long, and thanks for all the fish. So the theme of the cetaceans and space whales is it's an age-old timeless archetype. It's a timeless theme, and it might not be too far-fetched from reality.
this is where it's tricky, because I understand what you're saying. In some way, it's like you don't want your fucking pearls getting stolen, let alone thrown to swine, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big hurdle and a big obstacle that I'm trying to grasp and struggling with how to best, overcome and how to best approach, put things out. I want to release, the content and stuff in a way that's going to be memorable and impactful, and also, basically be able to support me, because
benefit you, the creator.
I care about the time and the energy that I put into it, actually supporting my ability to continue to eat and live and do things that I have to do.
What I always like to point out, Cullen, without wanting to cut you off, but as far as I can grok it, at least, there has been, or maybe, and soon again, hopefully, societies that recognize the utmost importance of the shaman class in all its variations, and therefore again redirect their attention and their efforts to, not supporting some psychopathic overlords through strange ideas of taxes, fines, and debts, but actually redirect whatever access they may have to individuals like you and many, many, many others that are actually providing this, most vital service to the collective. So thank you, and so much for my recommendation.
In a weird way, I think remodeling, because I'm not saying you're wrong, but it's kind of like how you're approaching it is going to beget certain kind of realities. For example, it's the same. It's very different with the posts I make or music I do on a guitar or something like that. But I've always kind of been like, I'm just going to flow. I mean, we both have Mercury in 12th house, so it's like we're just going to channel, we're just going to flow. In a sense, I don't even feel really like the author of half the shit I do. It's just like, I'm the smart conduit through which this kind of came through, but I can only take, it's the flow of the universe or something like that. There's got to be a way in which we can basically be, I'm not saying it's only this, but at the very least, like, I've had jams before where it's like fucking made me want to jizz, and then I'm like, no one heard that. And I'm just have to sit there and be like, well, the Akashic heard that, or God and the angels heard that. It's like, at some level, it's not so much about recognition. I get what you're saying, but in some way, it feels like the law of exchange has to be offered, honored in some way. But I guess my advice to you would be like, know that, like, I mean, this is a kind of Christian thought, but it's like, you're running the race and there's people cheering you on. Like, and when you cross it, you're going to be flabbergasted with how many, like, Da Vinci's been paying attention to your shit, and everybody, it's like, we're doing shit, we're taking the mantle of consciousness forward. And even if that doesn't always pan out in economic paradigms or accolade or celebrity or likes or whatever the fuck, those are arbitrary kind of standards. And I think we're honestly shifting out of that. Like what Rafael's saying, I think in some way we're going to be entering a place. This is idealistic. I get that. I'm an ENFP. I'm an idealist. But the point is, I think we're going to a place where your efforts will be more than rewarded, and it won't probably be a publisher's clearing check or whatever. But like you see what I'm saying? Like we've been programmed to think that that's like the carrot to get, and at some point, like being the change, being the conduit of the force, like Jedi's. You see what I'm saying? Like, Jedis weren't like, oh, I'm going to be awesome. They, like, did the kind of cool shit for the public. They were kind of socialist in a sense with their, like, magic, whereas Sith...
With their magic, yeah, Jim?
Oh, sorry, my mic fucking sucks. Or my thumb slipped or whatever. Jedi are doing it for the heart, and then, like, there's a mind with the Empire where it's like, we want to organize and control mentally and, like, get, rule the world or whatever. I promise...
You promise, yes, Jim?
Oh my god, my thumb. My promise is that the shift is occurring where the value structure is changing, where I think, honestly, like, the meek inherit the earth in that sense, right? Where it's like the people who are putting out all this stuff and not, like, number one on the fucking bestsellers list. It's like, populism isn't what it's about. Like, the nature of the populism is changing. People are waking up. 100th Monkey Effect is real. So at some point, like, there's just going to be, like, I promise you, people at some point, once they whether it's now, 5 years, 20 years, I don't know, I can't say that, but it's like, at some point, you're going to be a fundamental part of people's awareness process, just like it was for me, just like Nikola Tesla was for others, or Da Vinci. Like, we've just got to be the artists in the workshop, trucking, and I know you want to, like, not die, and you want to eat, so I do hope you get, like, compensated to the degree you feel comfortable. But you hear what I'm saying? Like, making that like the and you're not, but I'm saying we're shifting from the paradigm of that being, like, I don't even know, like, valuation being, like, misinterpreted. Like, some of the stuff we've done, some of these conversations, like, we don't get paid for this shit, but these have been some of the most fucking illuminating conversations I've ever had. And that value is I think actually honored by consciousness and God, or however you want to put this. Whereas like the material see what I'm saying? I'm kind of rambling, but it's like don't worry, man. It's like the dawn is coming.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that, and I definitely feel it too. It's just, I guess what it is it's just, you know, my own survival mechanism tends to overrule some of my higher ideals some of the time, and it definitely hasn't usually been like that, especially not a couple years ago. Wasn't as like that. It wasn't like that as much as it is now, but. Yeah, so basically, yeah, definitely, you know, the information is the currency itself, you know, the information and...
the novelty, as McKenna would put it.
Yeah, it is.
I'd even go one step further, because just briefly, Colin, without wanting to cut you off, it's even the idea, at least that's how I see it, whatever I am doing, ideally, not thinking at all about any recompense, for many reasons, basically what Jim explained. The way I like to put it is that quote-unquote God or the universe is the universal and ultimate accountant. So that's all good. But even further than that, anyone who can raise their level of consciousness or resonance or awareness, even through however they may come into contact with, for example, the information you provide, of course, already then, you know, in terms of the collective resonance, feeds into a much more, you know, enlightened, conscious and expanded reality, which must, of course, reflect back onto you. And even though I can understand you're kind of upset with Bashar not wanting to go down negative rabbit holes in that sense, but the positive spin, again, as you know, of course, the formula of excitement. And as far as I can grok, so far you've done a stellar job. You kept yourself alive. Congratulations.
Applause.
And I mean, of course, obviously you've put out I don't know how much content, and for
hundreds
sure
of
more.
hours.
And for sure, you know, there will always be the way to allow you to take the next step, because obviously you're charged up and excited about what you're doing. So as you already have experienced yourself, all I can encourage you to do is trust even a little bit more in yourself and in that process. Yeah, because obviously the electricity is there.
Yeah, definitely. In more
Plus,
recent...
you've been in the fucking trenches of the internet for a hot minute. Like, at some point, like, there's a lot of gremlins running around, and they're starting to, like, bite you, and you're like, God damn it, stop biting me.
Yeah, yes, seriously, that's it. And all the gremlins are take the form of flat earthers, so that's definitely what it's been.
Well, my 2 cents, like I said before with the pit stop thing, don't like look too hard. I mean, it's not, how would I put this? There's a balance here. You want to be aware of what's going on, but you don't want to be distracted. Like when I'm in flow of music, if this is one of the things I found very hard, being a 12th house, Mercury and Mars conjunct in Cancer, where it's like I would, like my brother and I play music, right? And we would be jamming for friends, and then somebody would be like hoot and holler, and I would pull out of flow. Because it's like I'm just in this like channeling mode or conduit mode, and then all of a sudden I'm getting like static from the outside, which doesn't mean people shouldn't make noise or, you know, accolade is bad. But like I think the same thing is probably going to be applicable to you in the sense that you need to just go down your water slide, and it's like if you try to look around at like all the other theme park rides while you're going down the water slide, it's going to detract probably from the experience fully itself and the joy and your excitement. You see what I'm saying? Like you got to just kind of stay in your lane, and you want advice, but you want to honestly get advice from an inner sanctum of like, you know, knights of the round that you trust, not just like the fucking idiot who's like just, you know, sitting there nagging you and trying to blow up, you know, pop your balloon or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I have used that analogy quite a bit in a lot of the explanations that I've done in the past, as well as the analogy I like to use is that it's literally, again, it all goes back to the vortex. It literally is vortexial in nature. So it's the more when you focus on, you know, to get through the goal is to get through the rabbit hole out to the other side, because it's a portal. It's a wormhole.
Correct. You don't want to get stuck there.
Yeah, it's a wormhole to another dimension. You want to get through that rabbit hole as quickly and as easily as possible. The goal is not to, so like, you know, especially like the QAnon and a lot of the conspiracy stuff, they glorify the theme of and not to, like, you know, I'm not detracting from
cool, dude.
the name of your thing or anything.
Well,
of course,
there
it's
is
all
always
about...
another rabbit hole anyhow. So I guess we're all on the same page in terms of, you know, there is a point in progress and not getting lost in the mystery, but cracking it, because consciousness is infinite, anyhow there's gonna be more. That's at least my view.
Yeah, exactly. But this is probably one of the biggest fundamental archetypal storyline of basically all of the mystery schools. I mean, that's the fundamental basis of the mystery schools, is the process of initiation, and we find that process reflected in so many of our foundational stories. That's what Alice in Wonderland is about, and so these are all highly Masonic and highly mystical allegories being told, such as Alice in Wonderland, the Matrix. All of these themes that come from ancient alchemy and ancient mystery schools of Hermeticism and Freemasonry is the journey from darkness to light, which is what the rabbit hole was all about. I forget who the actual illustrator of this old, I think it was a medieval alchemical artwork of this guy standing in front of basically in front of a hill, and it's like it's a 7-tiered hill.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. With all the astrology and kind of the stairs or the levels of calcification, all that, alchemy itself. Go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah, he's got the 7 steps of 7 alchemical steps there. He's got depicted on the outside, standing on each one of those layers, is each one of the planetary archetypes, and they're depicted in human form. He's got Mercury at the top, at the very top, at the pinnacle, because it's the alchemical, it's the distillation of the mercury, just like a thermometer, which is literally the model of the human physiology. Just as the Kundalini rises to the top, the refinement of the process rises to the top, just as the mercury, which was alchemically considered the central nervous system, is the mercury of our nervous system, rises to the top. All right, so as you've noticed in this visual graphics that I've been showing for quite a while by this point, is you're noticing what you're seeing is the sync that just happened to fall into place. I did not intend this whatsoever. It literally happened just by chance. When as you saw, I've obviously had the Unicursal Hexagram up and running for several segments throughout this the editing of this video, and so what happened is that happened to just overlap with one of the layers where I put this alchemical image. Again, I don't know the title of the original work, so if you guys know the original author or illustrator and the title of that work, please leave it in the comments down below, because I just don't have the time to go searching for cited references for this particular artwork. So I do apologize for not knowing that, but I'm sure some people out there know which work this is, so they can cite the references down in the comments below. Please do that. But so anyways, the point is that that image just happened to be on a spot here on my editing software that literally Again, I didn't plan this. I didn't even place anything here like this. This just happened by complete random chance. And then as I was going back watching, skimming over the video, I noticed that it was just syncing. It synced perfectly, like unbelievably perfectly and revealed a hidden structure to this alchemical image, this alchemical artwork. It's a deliberate placed, negative space code, to where if you notice the specific points of reference and nuance, such as the direct angular structure of the hill literally reveals, as well, the angles of the hill reveals a hidden code, a hidden pattern that is the Unicursal Hexagram, and it corresponds directly with that first layer, that first tier on the pyramid, as well as the upper layer of the hill, as well as an implied lower layer. If you judge by the angles, the projections of the angle of the steps, how it's got this implied shaded angle that directly highlights the outline of what would be the Unicursal Hexagram depicted in a negative spatial reference when viewing this alchemical artwork. It is absolutely astonishing. it's a mind-blowing discovery that literally the universe just it is something, whatever it is, just threw this sink right in front of it. Again, I didn't even try to. I usually don't ever try to, like, you know, sync things up. It usually just ends up happening, and then I end up noticing it, and I'm like, holy crap, how did that happen? And so it's just blowing my mind. I mean, I could go into more detail. I've been wanting to cover this artwork for, I've had it in the plans for a while now. I've got an article on my Patreon page that covers a bit of it more in depth, so I might as well just go ahead and discuss it a little bit more now. But again, aside from the from the planetary bodies being depicted as the archetypal humans here atop the pyramid, you've got the most important symbolism, which is the stairway of ascent, leading up to what is essentially the the threshold, or the area where the alchemical wedding takes place. That's why he's depicted the king and the queen right here, which directly in the center of the king and the queen is the 0 point, the ignition point of the Unicursal Hexagram, where the spark of ignition of the sex magic takes place between the masculine and feminine, depicted as the divine king and the divine queen. Which is depicted underneath the archway, which is the fornix, which is the royal arch of heaven, as we've discussed in Symbols of Power Part 2 and Part 3, is the royal archway, which is the human skull, which is why it's depicted with the sun and the moon as the left and right hemispheres of the brain, depicted where the alchemical wedding takes place, the alchemical marriage of the thalamus within Golgotha, the place of the skull, atop the spinal column, which is the Jed pillar, which is the staircase, the stairway to heaven. So all of the alchemical artwork is depicted here. And the one thing I found quite intriguing is that did he just completely misplace all of the astrological sign, the zodiac signs here? They seem to be in just a completely random order. I find that to be quite humorous, actually. I'm not sure if that was intentional, or I'm not sure what's going on there, but did he misplace all of the zodiacal signs? They're not in any consecutive order as far as from what I'm seeing. But I think that's just about everything I wanted to cover with that symbolic sync, which blew my mind. But at the bottom of that, at the very base of that pyramid, he's subtly depicted, you know, a blindfolded man was being instructed, basically, which is the Freemasonic initiation of from darkness into light, which is the third degree, the initiation ritual of the third degree, taking the initiate from darkness of ignorance into the light of illumination and consciousness. But it also depicts a little white rabbit being released into a little rabbit hole down at the very bottom of the pyramid.
I didn't notice that ever. Good call.
It's very subtle, but it's one of the key aspects of the artwork. And so that's the nature. Is the rabbit hole is literally, it's the vortex, it's the portal, there's an old
it's almost like Sonic the Hedgehog going through the rings infinitely. It's like just this is how it is, y'all. We just go through birth canals ever and ever and ever and ever.
Or the Dolphin Echo in the video game Echo going through the rings as well.
Cetaceans coming back again.
Yep. But so it's also depicted there's this really popular old, I think I don't know if it's a Disney cartoon, but it's a really old Disney animation called Bimbo's Initiation. And he also goes there, and I think I've showed these in some of my other presentations on my channel. If not, we'll be going much deeper into those. And I think it's my Navigating the Maze presentation, which was supposed to be Symbols of Power Part 4. And I started it. I got about maybe 3/4 of the way through, and it just got too dense. It became too fractal, and so it blew
you had
my
to
mind.
bifurcate.
It blew my mind, and so I didn't end up finishing it. And that's what's happened with literally like at least dozens of my full films that I've got right now that are nearly finished, but they got too dense and they blew my mind too much to where I was like, so I ended up losing track.
You've got to make those screenable, like for watch parties. I don't know how that is. Like how if you can upload onto Facebook in a certain way. I would host watch parties of your videos all the time on Team Rabbit Hole. That's not a problem. It's like if they're on YouTube, it's one thing. I think if they're embedded inside the fucking matrix of Facebook, you can hit like play for a watch party. I don't know how this mechanics work really.
Yeah, well, let me go ahead and announce this. I'm at the point where
it's a girl.
I'm kidding. That too. No, but I'm at the point right now where the suppression, the censorship has gotten so bad that keeping things to myself and until I release it on my channel and stuff, that's not. It's not doing me any good whatsoever. So for anyone listening out there, if I upload this onto my channel as well, go ahead. You have my full permission. You can upload any of my videos, any of my stuff. Do whatever you want with it. I don't care. Monetize it. I don't care. Just help. Just help spread
the word, but also kick back money. If you're gonna fucking monetize it, you better be giving money back to Cullen. Is all I'm gonna say about that.
Well, I guess that would make sense too. It's like a stream. If you're collecting the stuff from downstream from the source, and just disseminating that way without returning something back to the source, then it's cutting off the cycle of it's cutting off that energetic cycle.
Just know your karma will be fucked. I'm kidding. If you drink from the river Ganges at the bottom and you're not going to the top of the fucking Himalayas or whatever.
Well, I'm just saying, my only caveat is to at least provide the original source link, to where, because that's the thing is, if you're going to disseminate that stuff from someone else who is doing the work to put it out, then you want to support that source of the work so that they can continue doing that.
Amen.
And as well as for all the other new, initiates who want more of that content from the source of where it came from. That's why you need to keep the original sources intact and, link the original sources in your posts or whatever, so that for people who are just
lifting the veil, all that kind of stuff.
So for people who are just finding it, they can actually go back to the source so that they can continue learning more of it. Without anyone gatekeeping it or anything like that. So that's the only thing is I feel that's more than fair, and I feel that's
more than fair, dude. But I'm glad you're saying this, because forever you've been busting your card so hard, and it's like I think you're going to be blessed by doing this, first of all, and second of all, it's a lot like the what's the cycle, the water cycle a little. It's like if the water can't go back to the ice, the mountains and come back to the rivers to do that stuff, it ends up drying out. We don't want this information to dry out. We want this stuff to progress and all, grow and grow and grow, ouroboreally, infinitely, evermore upwards and further up and further in. So trust me if I say Cullen Smith's a genius. I will say this on the record, and I think he is a gatekeeper of new information for the new paradigm. Not a gatekeeper in a bad sense, but like he is a portal. And if you go down his rabbit holes, at least say you did it. And give credit to the, it's like when we have, there's a reason we know about Da Vinci, there's a reason we know about Tesla, because people cited them as much as governments wanted to kind of snuff their flames and shit, or whatever, or at least in Tesla's case. It's just about paying it forward and doing the right thing. And like I said, I'm going to go as far as saying karma is involved, where it's like, hey, if you're going to be sneaky and weird, you'll get yours. And if you're going to be dutiful and upright, you'll be blessed tenfold or whatever. So just do the right thing. Right? It's a Spike Lee movie. Do the right thing.
It's interesting because I pay a lot of attention to I like to study social dynamics. I like to study human nature and how certain people behave and how certain people think, and it's just one of the things that fascinates me, and what most people in the truth movement will know. I mean, Robert Otte has made videos complaining about this as well. He's a 7/7 G slinger on YouTube. He was real big for introducing Walter Russell's stuff to a lot of the larger community. Him and Matt Presti both, but so him and many others, my friend Christopher Lord, Truth Heresy, we all have been victims and observing that the most people the people who are most notorious for basically disrupting that water cycle, if you will, are the flat earthers. They're the ones literally just taking everyone else's stuff and trying to pass it off as their own, and basically to try to make money off it. And
well, they'll be known for that. I mean, it's a frustrating thing, but it's like the truth comes out, and you'll be known by your works, kind of thing. So fuck them. See, you got to start. I'm not telling you how to be. I'm a little older than you, 555. I swear, when I was giving you life advice last time, it was 444. My angels are kicking me in the balls to tell you this kind of stuff. There's a Taoist kind of parable I've heard, right? Where basically there's this sage, and he's like, everyone's like, oh my god, you're so wise, you're the shit. Oh my gosh, you should make a dojo or whatever. He's like, maybe so. And then he builds this, they do it for him, and they put him on a chair, and some scandal happens. I'm going to botch the story, but basically some scandal happens, like, were you part of the scandal, you fucker? Get out of town. And he's like, maybe so, like, just kind of hold the middle path, right? It was like, maybe so. He's not saying yes or no, not being extreme or a cuckold or whatever. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just middle pathing it after, and then he's homeless again. He's in, begging for food in the wilderness or whatever. Then people start realizing he's wise again, and they're like, oh my god, how did we ever do this to you? We're so sorry, come back. And he's like, maybe so. It's like, you got to keep that maybe so, hold on loosely thing, right? Or it's just like, yes, it's important for the flow to happen, but it's like, what's to be will be, right? And in a sense, I think you're part of such a high excitement, you're high vibe, dude. I don't care if you're not new age. I am. And you're like fucking high electric vibes. You're my crew, dude. You're Team Rabbithole as fuck. And when we're doing the highest vibe, the thing that makes us most excited, let's just put it that way, the conduit of the most electricity in our balanced self, or whatever this thing is, not even hell can stand a chance. Like, the doors of hell can't, that's the whole Bible verse there. It's like, nothing stands a chance to good vibes. And it might not manifest in the way you would expect. That's the second part of the equation. Don't have expectations. Because if you're sitting here being like, I'm so high vibe, why am I not on MTV? Or something like that. It's like, well, you have an expectation. Dude, you're a rock star in my book, and I think more and more people are going to be aware of you, and I think you're going to get yours, so don't be, like, grabbing for it on the way up, because I think it's all going to come to you, just hold on loosely. But that's hard to say to a young person. I mean, you're not young, but, like, a younger person trying to make it in the world, trying to be, like, recognized to I don't even know where I dropped off. The point is, the universe is watching. It's like Slaughterhouse 5. You're an awesome television. You're some of the most highly entertaining shit there is. And even though you're not maybe getting, like I said, like checks from fucking, I don't want to manifest something that's saying that you won't get rich, but like, you see my point. Like, it's like Sisyphus with a smile kind of thing. Like, just keep pushing that rock, and at some point everyone's going to be like, God damn, this is the dopest shit. And whether it becomes standard of textbook, who knows? If you do this thing, when I say we, I mean the royal we. If you do this thing right, or God, if this all moves forward right, like education is standardized, right? Like curriculums are made, and if we can get like this kind of information into schools, do you understand what happens? Like, this is when monkeys wake up beyond 100th monkey. This is like when like the revolution changed. You know what I'm saying?
This is when it becomes Planet of the Apes.
Or something. But I'm saying, like, right now we have the shittiest textbooks. Everybody thinks school sucks. It's like, if kids were learning this as a curriculum, they would be excited to learn about the world around them and dig deeper.
It's true, and that's exactly why I started.
You're an educator.
That's exactly why I started doing what I do, is because this is what has been my passion my whole life. Like, this is what I've been looking for. I was actively, like, I knew there was something out there. I didn't know what it was, but I was having these thoughts ever since I can remember, since before I can remember. And this is what I was always looking, like, I knew this was...
Little Collins doodles or fractals.
I knew this was my path, and I didn't know, but obviously my parents had no clue about any of this stuff. No one around me, none of my teachers, no one else had any of this, stuff out there. And so once I found, once I came to this awakening, like that instantly it was, my fire lit within me, my light bulb went on. And, that's the first thought that I had was, I was like, this is my purpose. This is my mission. This is my path, is to share everything that I learn and everything that I know, because there are others out there who are like me, who have been also seeking this, this stuff their whole lives, and no one else around them has known it or was able to show them. So that's exactly why, that's what fuels me. That's my passion. That's my mission. My purpose is to simply show the things that for other people who are also seeking it.
What you seek is seeking you. Rafael said it a bunch. It's like, dude, don't deviate from the path and just follow the inner mounting flame within you. And like, literally, you're going to attract way more people than if you're like worried about the criticisms of a few monkeys that are like there as karmic Buddha fucking moments to like cause you to swerve. That's my
Yeah, no,
advice. Like, don't swerve. Like, just like, what if fucking Freddie Mercury was like swerved? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if people are like, oh, you have buck teeth, don't be a lead singer. It's like, fuck y'all. Like, he's Freddie Mercury. You know what I mean? It's like that. So what you're reminding me a little of is Morpheus. It's like his joy was to unplug people from the Matrix and to find the one. That was his joy, right? Like, ultimately, his joy leads to his personal salvation as well as the salvation of the Matrix and the Zion and all the shit. So it's like, if he had sat there and listened to all those fuckers in, like, Matrix Revolutions who were like, oh, you're wrong, are you sure? I don't believe this. And he's like, my beliefs don't require you to believe in my beliefs, right? It's like, you gotta just hold that middle path, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, the greatest joy about all of it is, I get tons of excitement and joy and pleasure from actually, just let alone just figuring, things out and discovering certain things and having things fall into place the way they do. And I do get really, I get really excited about that stuff. Like, honestly, if you could see, how I am, in the process of, I'm literally sitting here wringing my hands together and,
It's your drug of choice. I mean, it's what gets you off.
Oh my God. Christy used to always, see how excited I would get. And I would literally, do this thing. I wring my hands together and get all excited about it. And I mean, you can hear it.
It's like Scrooge with money. It's like you with information, dude. That's the whole point of Venus. You find that, your value is communication for the collective. That's what I was telling you. 12. I mean, dude, it's real. And you're blessed with Jupiter in the 12th house. You are the dreamer telling us the syntax of the dream. That's what's going on here. So, I mean, for what little I could say, and I don't know if we should wrap it up because it's hitting an hour mark or what. That's up to y'all. Don't, find the others, people like me, people like Rafael, whatever, who are fully supportive of you without attachments. You know what I mean? We're not judging you. We're your friends, right? And I've never met you. I hope to meet up someday. Speaking of which, there's people, Amber Scott, she's in Texas again. She got back from Costa Rica. She was talking about, she lives in San Antonio. You're kind of down that way. I don't know how, I'm not saying go start a fucking David Koresh cult, but it's like, we need to be starting to bunk up with the people we relate most with and making the culture and raising the vibes. And I swear to you, it's going to be like those, whale ships from Arrival or whatever, where it's like they're gonna, or like Independence Day, all these ships pop up everywhere and then look at what they can do, and not in a destructive sense, but in a raising the vibe sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Amber Scott, actually, she messaged me as well, and she's been wanting me to get down and join the crew and do some things there, what they're doing in Costa Rica, which would be really, really dope.
I would love dude, I'm dead ass. If we could join up sometime and bunk up, I don't care if it's a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, I don't really give a fuck on timescales. You would make a cool roommate. I know that. We would have so much fun, and that doesn't mean we'd always have to play ping pong and hang out and shit, but it's dude, you're the kind of monkey I want to be living with, right? Raphael too. We've got to be finding the others, making these little biodomes of consciousness, and straight up, it's like Santa's little elves in their shop, they do their shit, and then the whole world benefits from it. It's not just the elves, they're doing what they're made for, and I think we're all starting to step into our stride for what we were made to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's ultimately, especially right now, that's the most important thing for me, especially in, not just for me, but in everything that I'm trying to do. Is I'm at that point personally where when I first started doing all of this, honestly, I know, don't get me wrong, there's so many of you guys out there that love all this stuff that is going on, and not just with what I'm producing, but with so many things going on. But when I first started doing this back in 2013, at least as far as the lifting the veil stuff, was when I started all of that in 2013.
That's when I started waking up. You had probably a much more pivotal role in my awakening than you realize. Continue.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is that was sort of there was this massive energy in the air, and it was glorious. It was amazing what was going on, and it could
have been a solar cycle. But go ahead.
What made it so much more, I think, so much more powerful than what is going on right now, is that there was tons of other people that were actually adding to my sinks. I mean, they were adding things that were both valuable and extremely meaningful, and it just fit really well. And that's where I first met a lot of you guys, like my one of my other good homies, Stephen Green, for OpThink Radio, and that's where I met True Theorisy, Christopher Lord, and so many others. where all this stuff was syncing together, and we were all sharing, in these massive, and Santos was a part of that as well, at the time before.
God bless that Aries.
Yeah,
I'm so sad for him.
Before we all got, divided and pit against each other. Basically, money does that. Money is the thing that does that. But the point that I'm getting at is that what made it so glorious was that we were all sharing syncs that were both meaningful and influential and impactful, and actually added a lot of value to the original work. And that's literally what completed the cycle and kept the cycle flowing, and it didn't divert and didn't detract, or it didn't break that cycle. That water cycle essentially is what it related to the water cycle. It always returned back to the source, and it continually fed itself as it grew and as it expanded. And I have not been getting any of that meaningful. Like, people haven't been adding meaningful syncs to anything that I'm putting out, and like adding, certain.
It's been dry, is what you're saying.
It has definitely felt like.
So here's two ways to look at it. One is that this is an obstacle you've chosen to put in front of yourself to grow through. That's a positive kind of way of looking at it. Otherwise, you got to adapt and change your algorithm to get back into the mode that you were. Either way, right? It's like, all right, find the others. Who are you resonating with? Don't worry about those haters. Don't spend 6 hours making a video response to some guy you're never going to talk to who just like give you shit. It's like, talk to the people that get you off.
Yeah, but that's actually the point, though, is that literally every single one of the symbols of power stuff started as a direct response, as a Facebook rebuttal to debunk someone's. It was a direct response to someone's, and then I ended up deciding to write it down on paper, and then it ended up becoming the symbols of power, stuff.
So then it really is just about like honoring the process that you, for some super conscious, subconscious reason or whatever, have placed yourself in. Like, the conditions of your video game are like, sometimes it seems like you're Mario who goes into the tunnel down into the fucking, underworld or whatever. It's like, and there's good to that and bad to that, obviously. But I'm just saying, it's not absolutism. I'm not saying never listen to detractors, never debate. I'm just saying I think the reason you're kind of drying out is because you're not recharging your battery. How do you recharge your battery? Find the fucking people that high voltage you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, true. That's definitely the bottom line that I also wanted to get at was it's also, I'm at the point where I am not just mentally, I'm not burnt out. That's the thing, is I'd never burn out. I just do get mentally and physically exhausted especially with how it's going now. Is like, back when I first started this stuff, it was like a very small piece of information turned into like, the first symbols of power or some other etymology video or something I did. And that was just, it was like a paragraph long. And the stuff that I'm doing now is like 100 pages long.
You're dealing with a Hydra situation. The heads are coming out of everywhere.
Exactly. It's just so much. It's too much coming in for me.
Well, dare I say, this was the Hermit card. Maybe take a fucking respite or whatever. It doesn't mean stop, but just like take a breather, do a Vipassana, do what you got to do.
Do a shamanic journey.
Ooh, always. Team Rabbit Hole approved.
Well, what I need, like the solution to it is ideally I would need to, clone myself like Dr. Manhattan, approach it from like 10 different versions of myself to handle the amount of workload and the workflow necessary. But what I need ultimately is I've especially since losing Christy in February, I feel really isolated, and I feel really alone, especially right now. I know there's all of you guys out there that are connecting, so I don't feel alone in that sense, but I feel alone in the sense that like I'm just isolated. Like I'm not with the community that I need to support me. Like I need to be an integral part of a like-minded community, to where they actually provide feedback and I provide feedback for them, and it's a perpetual cycle that
it's a mutually beneficial situation. I got you, bro.
A positive loop, and so that's the next phase that I'm working on. Finding and getting at. I actually just recently have been speaking to Ben Stewart, the creator of Esoteric Agenda and Cymatica, and Limitless on Gaia. So we've been chatting a bit here and there. He's I think he's starting a podcast as well.
Get him on. Get them on here. Let's have a fucking gangbang.
Yeah, so I was wanting to, so that's it. I just am wanting to
find the others.
Yeah,
I got
to find
you.
the others.
That's the mode we're in. Because look, the illumination process is very much the hermit card. You have to, in the writer wait, like the whole Led Zeppelin song remains the same concert video where Jimmy Page is climbing the mountain and sees himself aging and all this shit. Like, we have to look into our own candle for ourselves, and there's a period of that. The isolation is good, but at some point, no man is an island. We are part of a terrarium of being with, an ecology of consciousness, and at some point, it's hide it under a bushel. No, I'm going to let it shine. I think it's time for you to shine, and now it's just a matter of finding the conditions in which you most feel both appreciated and probably helped or whatever. Like, it's a combination of things. I lived in basically a think tank commune in Switzerland for a year, so I know how communal living works, where basically academia is kind of the impetus, or spiritual academia, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's doable. I'm hoping to get this stuff going. COVID has kind of fucked that up. I should be in Vienna right now with Rafael. I had a plane ticket, right? We're all kind of swerving and doing weird things, but the point is, this too shall pass.
Redefining this whole thing, and this is not a disturbance or anything. This is, if anything, then an acceleration of exactly that which we wish to manifest, and nothing else. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I'm not really complaining. In a lot of ways, the things that I'm experiencing now would not have occurred if I had just been lollygagging in Europe right now. So I'm okay with it. I'm not even bitter like that. Everything that happens needs to occur, or else it wouldn't in some weird abstract way. But we're at a precipice. We're at an aeon shift. In a new age sense, we're at a very critical point in American history. You and I, Colin, over here in the States. Global history. I'll lump Rafael in here so he doesn't feel left out in the cold. The whole point is
don't worry, Europe is not left out.
I know you're not. You're like, fucking, I'm on a spaceship in my consciousness anyway, fuck all this. So anyway, the idea here is the times are not only changing, they are fucking fractaling. So we can start creating the culture we want. We can start finding the others. We can start, there's no need to watch MTV. There's no need to watch CNN. There's no need to go to Bill Nye for fucking science. Or, you know what I mean? We could be doing this stuff ourselves, and I think we're not dumb enough that, dare I say, we might be getting the baton. The universe is trying to shove the baton in the direction, at least in my timeline, towards people like us who have hearts and compassion and love leading it. Money is cool, but that's not the point. Status is cool, but that's not the point. Accolade, getting applause, that's cool, but it's not the point. The point is expansion. And we are here to expand, and I think we're all expanding, so it's all good. I hope you can link up, in a way that you feel you're expanding to your highest potential in this timeline.
When you were saying the universe is trying to shove the baton, I was like, it's trying to shove the baton up the butt. But up
the rabbit hole.
up the old rabbit hole. But that's what everything is pointing to. That's what everything is leading to, and that's I don't enjoy especially the series of videos that I'm having to put out right now, especially about the AI takeover, the Westworld, coming Westworld. And
I'm about to binge Westworld for Corey Kaplan, for the record, because I think we got to be careful what we imbibe informationally, because it influences. It's like in the beginning of Inception, an idea is like a virus. These things could spread and create dis-ease. Not to say that they're false, but I'm just saying, Rafael, tell me your opinion really quick on what to think about AI. Just that might assuage some of Colin's anxieties, but we shouldn't probably open the can of AI wormholes. Maybe that's the next time you come on here, kind of thing. Although we had a glorious conversation, episode number 69, talking about AI.
Well, really quick, to wrap that up, what I was getting at was, is that, so that's the new, quote unquote, new normal that they are trying to impose on us. And that's not the genuine new normal. And that's not the new normal that we have always had at our disposal, ever since before these systems were even created. And so that's not the new normal that we desire, nor is it the ideal one, nor is it the one that we have to go down. It's not the path that we have to go down. It's not the path that we are going to go down, nor should we go down. We have all the tools for the real new normal at our disposal, and we always have. The free energy, the Tesla technology, the electric energy, limitless technology.
Kundalini.
Yeah, the processes of, self-sustenance, off-grid abundance, biotexture, in building structures and eco-villages out of renewable, restorable, perfectly sustainable materials, the liberation of cannabis and hemp as the primary industrial substrate for producing all of our plastic, biodegradable plastics. Everything should be made from hemp. Hemp should be grown for everything, paper, toilet paper, all this stuff can be sustainably renewable. It can be utilized for bioremediation of nuclear waste and nuclear radiation, whether it's in the seas. It can absorb and mitigate radiation leaking into the oceans. It can absorb nuclear radiation from the soils. This is bioremediation. It's extremely powerful. So cannabis, the mushrooms, are literally the sustainable way to the future as far as producing all of our, you can produce all of our textiles, all of our clothes from hemp. It's far more durable. It's far more reliable. It's far more sustainable, as well as mushrooms can produce all of our leather, can produce, I think you can produce mushroom plastic as well. It can hemp plastics. So
you're talking about a world I want to live in. Let's be real. Basically, for what, and Cullen, I think your thumb slipped. Bottom line, that's where we are going. But in a weird way, it took us to get to the edge of the precipice, I think, before we could realize that's what we would prefer. Yeah,
in a way, I think that's also, there's this atmosphere out there of, that, the people playing the evil, role in this cosmic game is, I think that's probably the whole point is, people only change. The biggest driver for positive change is fear. And I know love is as well, but we've talked about this before, but fear is probably the more influential and the more impactful driver of change. People won't change to a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle until they until they have what's called a health scare, which is, they have a heart attack, and before that they denied up to their, almost dying breath that, they were bacon trolls. Bacon was their life, and they were just constantly, bacon though is the reason why we can't have a sustainable world, because bacon though. And and then all these pandemics come out, and they almost die from it, and then they're like, shit, maybe now we shouldn't actually factory farm animals, and maybe now we so it does take that point of basically considered, I guess it's like an ego death for the collective. It's a point of ultimate destruction for people to finally say, all right, now I don't have a choice anymore. But the point is to make that choice before we ever reach that point. It needs to be a conscious choice before we ever experience, these hardships. We don't have to, none of this shit has to happen. We don't have to go on complete government. We don't have to, they're trying to create chaos right now with these government shutdowns, and they're trying to create mass death, and that's what this is all about. And it doesn't have to happen. None of this shit is even based on any factual scientific basis. It's, the whole thing. They're trying to create this new normal that is the complete opposite of the real new normal that has always been awaiting us, if we would so choose to, first of all, become aware of it and to share it and to actually align our activities and our structures to that, such as, we know what they are. We know what these solutions are. We've had them all along. We've been talking about them for years, and for some reason, especially once Trumpy got into... It didn't
seem like the most viable option. That's what I'm saying. We had to get to the edge of, self-destruction and...
to kind of be really sure that the old system really isn't working, and now maybe it's blatantly obvious enough for the shift to occur.
Right,
exactly.
The condition. The baby isn't going to come out until the placenta stops feeding it, or there's a time where it's like, I gotta go. This isn't going to work anymore. My conditions are less preferable, and I gotta just dip now. I'm not sure exactly how birth works, but you get my analogy point. I'm like, maybe there isn't it doesn't necessarily work that way. Raphael, I think it might be. I know this is putting you on the fly here. Even though we just read it the other day, maybe even. In SJ's episode, which might have been the last... anyway, could you do us a favor, and maybe if we decide we're kind of wrapping up in a close, this might be a good way to punctuate it, where it's just what we perceive as challenge is maybe the catalyst to our highest growth. And that's counterintuitive in some way, but it's it takes, it's all way on coagulate. You got to solve and break things down to coagulate to reassemble, and it's an infinite kind of loop of that thing. I was going to ask you to read the Manly P. Hall Secret Teachings of the Ages excerpt on basically the Kabbalistic apotheosis of the devil and all that jazz. It might take him a second to do that. Yeah, I was like, I could stall. But the idea here is,
well, basically, let me just
go for it.
What I'll do, because it is quite an excerpt, and I read it just 1 or 2 episodes ago.
But I think Colin will love it.
Definitely will love it. Yeah, that's not even a question.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Just do it. Let's just do it. I would do it if I had it up. You could do it.
All right. So then, Colin,
it gives us a good perspective.
If you want to have a 5 to, I don't know how long it actually was, 10 minutes,
5 minutes
recitation by myself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
This is maybe how we can end it, where it's like, look, how can we look at the obstacles as not obstacles, or better yet, how can we get circumspect around what we think what we're stubbing our toe on, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then here we go. So this is from Manly Palmer Halls, and just a caveat for you, if you haven't realized this yet, even I just got it recently, MP Hall, and what a name is Manly. I mean, that's not a name. And then you have P, whatever that stands for, and then Hall. And
Palmer.
Right.
It's Manly Palmer Hall.
Yeah, I mean, even this Palmer, I mean, what is this? And then, but basically you put the P and the Hall together, and what you get is phallus. So by now, I mean, it's pretty obvious that this guy's name is not random or anything like this. It's you get the connotation, right, Colin?
Yeah, definitely. I actually did a post about that sometime last year, and I posted it in the Gnostic groups and stuff. And
I actually saw it from you.
Maybe I did it more humorously. I just made it Manly Pee Hole because
piss hole. That's great.
Yeah,
here.
It was just a joke. I was just having. Don't get me. I love
the sacred texts. Oh my God! How dare you!
I got absolutely crucified.
No, but it's obvious. It's obvious. It's Manly, Palmer, like the palm of your hand, and then Hall or phallus. I mean, sorry.
And it's those with eyes that ties to see. And here's the weird thing, Colin. We're tricksters. It's you got to just throw your brick, in the window and run. You can't just wait for them to get you, kind of thing. That's what memes are on Team Rabbit Hole. It's just hey, I post them and I walk away. I don't even know what people are talking about.
Probably the best way to do it. So if you wish, I'll read this part now.
Drive-by gnosis. That's how to do it. Drive-by gnosis. Go ahead, Rafael.
So this is from Manly Palmer Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, chapter Kabbalistic Keys to the Creation of Man, all available online. So it goes, in this ritualistic drama, possibly derived from the Egyptians, Adam, banished from the Garden of Eden, represents man philosophically exiled from the sphere of truth. Through ignorance man falls, through wisdom he redeems himself. The Garden of Eden represents the house of the mysteries. See the vision of Enoch, in the midst of which grew both the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Man, the banished Adam, seeks to pass from the outer court of the sanctuary, the exterior universe, into the sanctum sanctorum. But before him rises a vast creature armed with a flashing sword that, moving slowly but continually, sweeps clear a white circle, and through this ring pass not, the Adamic man cannot break. The cherubim addresses the seeker thus, Man, thou art dust, and to dust thou shalt return. Thou wert fashioned by the builder of forms, thou belongest to the sphere of form, and the breath that was breathed into thy soul was the breath of form, and like a flame it shall flicker out. More than thou art, thou canst not be. Thou art a denizen of the outer world, and it is forbidden thee to enter this hidden place. And the Adam replies, Many times have I stood within this courtyard and begged admission to my father's house, and thou hast refused it me and sent me back to wander in darkness. True it is that I was fashioned out of the dirt, and that my Maker could not confer upon me the boon of immortality. But no more shalt thou send me away, for, wandering in the darkness, I have discovered that the Almighty hath decreed my salvation, because he hath sent me out of the most hidden mystery, his only begotten, who didst take upon himself the world fashioned by the Demiurgus. Upon the elements of that world was he crucified, and from him hath poured forth the blood of my salvation. And God, entering into his creation, hath quickened it, and established therein a road that leadeth to himself. While my Maker could not give me immortality, immortality was inherent in the very dust of which I was composed. For before the world was fabricated, and before the Demiurgus became the regent of nature, the eternal life had impressed itself upon the face of cosmos. This is its sign, the cross. Do you now deny me entrance, I who have at last learned the mystery of myself? And the voice replies, he who is aware is. Behold. Gazing about him, Adam finds himself in a radiant place, in the midst of which stands a tree with flashing jewels for fruit, and entwined about its trunk a flaming, winged serpent, crowned with a diadem of stars. It was the voice of the serpent that had spoken. Who art thou? Demands the Adam. I, the serpent answers, am Satan who was stoned. I am the adversary, the Lord who is against you, the one who pleads for your destruction before the eternal tribunal. I was your enemy upon the day that you were formed. I have led you into temptation, I have delivered you into the hands of evil, I have maligned you, I have striven ever to achieve your undoing. I am the guardian of the tree of knowledge, and I have sworn that none whom I can lead astray shall partake of its fruits. The Adam replies, for uncounted ages have I been thy servant. In my ignorance I have listened to thy words, and they led me into paths of sorrow. Thou hast placed in my mind dreams of power, and when I struggled to realize those dreams, they brought me naught but pain. Thou hast sought in me the seeds of desire, and when I lusted after the things of the flesh, agony was my only recompense. Thou hast sent me false prophets and false reasoning, and when I strove to grasp the magnitude of truth, I found thy laws were false, and only dismay rewarded my strivings. I am done with thee forever, O artful spirit. I have tired of thy world of illusions. No longer will I labor in thy vineyards of iniquity. Get thee behind me, tempter, and the host of thy temptations. There is no happiness, no peace, no good, no future in the doctrines of selfishness, hate, and passion preached by thee. All these things do I cast aside. Renounced is thy rule forever. And the serpent makes answer, behold, O Adam, the nature of thy adversary. The serpent disappears in a blinding sunburst of radiance, and in its place stands an angel resplendent in shining golden garments with great scarlet wings that spread from one corner of the heavens to the other. Dismayed and awestruck, the Adam falls before the divine creature. I am the Lord who is against thee, and thus accomplishes thy salvation, continues the voice. Thou hast hated me, but through the ages yet to be, thou shalt bless me. For I have led thee out of the sphere of the Demiurgus. I have turned thee against the illusion of worldliness. I have weaned thee of desire. I have awakened in thy soul the immortality of which I myself partake. Follow me, O Adam, for I am the way, the life, and the truth.
So the reason I asked you to read that is because I think what we tend to do is strive against that. And I'm not saying, it's tricky. It's very heavy and dense stuff, and it's not for everybody to, for those with ears to hear. But the point is, what we perceive as a trial and tribulation is actually our salvation in some weird way too. So whether it's, being broke at points, living in a car, or death itself, or these zeitgeist shifts that make us shudder and wonder what the fuck is going on, I believe ultimately it's all for the glory of God in a weird way, however one wants to put that, and it's all good. But that gets tricky, because obviously we don't want to be just like turning into robots and all this kind of shit. Like even Bashar is talking about like alternate timelines where we kind of go the AI route, and that's what the grays are. I mean, if I'm paraphrasing that right, Rafael?
Right, sure.
So maybe in parting, I think maybe we've talked quite a bit, and maybe we can wrap it up here. Hold on loosely to all presuppositions, even the ones that feel good, because you never, like the caterpillar is like, I love being a fucking caterpillar, and then one day it's got this mechanism in it that says, you should do something else, and it's like, I don't know, I don't feel too comfortable with this, and it's like, but I guess I'll do it. I mean, I don't know how it actually feels, but when it starts making a cocoon, then it's like liquefies, and all that's left is this respiratory system, basically, and it's just like, oh my god, what have I done? And then it turns into a butterfly. And it's like, this was always in the plan, it's all good, it just, I mean, if the caterpillar was expecting to stay a caterpillar, those expectations are going to be dashed. You know, gnashing of teeth is nothing but what occurs. Hold on loosely to expectations. Maybe don't even try to have any, and go for the highest excitement, and you can't go wrong.
Here we go. Cullen, any parting statements?
No, not really. Sorry, I've been a little tuned out. I was actually doing that link you sent me, which was awesome. So yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, no, I'm really, that's pretty much it for me.
Word. Well, I hope you weren't tuned out too much to not hear that Manly P.L. excerpt. If you were, just listen to this replay. It's fucking... It's an insoluble nugget of wisdom at some level. I really do appreciate you coming on. I love having you on. You're my friend. I hope we meet up and hang out. The song I kind of picked, I think we're going to play a Muse song, I picked it because it's called Microcuts. You don't want to die the death of 1,000 cuts. I don't think you should be swerving and listening to every fucking opinion. I know you want to engage with them and use them as catalysts for creativity. Do that with discernment. Holler at monkeys like me anytime. I'm your friend and compatriot on this ride upwards and ever into the golden light that is. So I love you, dude, and just don't swerve. Like, keep doing your shit. You're crushing it. And if a human could say that, you know the angels are saying it too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank both of you guys. I really appreciate it, and I'm always glad to be here.
Thank you, Colin. It was most exciting for me to participate. I trust that for the listeners as well, especially if still listening. Thank you again. Also, thank you, ever-present Brother Jim. And yeah, thank you everyone. Further up and further in, Team Rabbithole, live in action. Enjoy yourselves.
Radio Okie Talkie, Radio Okie